For 6 seasons, we've dived into the themes, metaphors, and foreshadowing of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We are your hosts,
Leah,
Tabby,
and Sarah. Welcome to the final season of Becoming Buffy. Hey guys, welcome back to Becoming Buffy. Today we're talking about Season 7, Episode 22, Chosen, written and directed by Joss Whedon and aired May 20th, 2003. Well,
hey,
we
so
did
this
it.
is crazy.
We did it. I know. I'm like, it's just another episode, but it's also like the last main episode that we're going to be doing. Like, what?
It was so interesting watching this episode and things happening that I liked or didn't like, and having to switch my brain from being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to talk about this podcast and how like this could have been done differently, or I would like to see this in the future, but like kind of like watching it in the mindset of like how is this setting up the show for the future type of thing. It was really hard to watch this episode and be like, oh, this isn't setting up, this is the setup, like this is it, like
Yeah.
it's so crazy. I was just telling Sarah and Tabby how like I am really bad about processing emotions in the moment. Like usually I feel like big things happen and then I don't really process that it happened until like a while after, and then it'll hit me on like some random Tuesday and I'm like, oh my gosh. But it is weird to think about, like, we've literally been doing this podcast for 5 years. Like,
yep, longer than you've known your husband.
Yes, like when I started this podcast, I was in college. Hey, not in college. I literally, like, I was single and I was living in Ohio. Like, what? And now it's like I'm married, never finished my degree, and I'm in California again. Hey, what? Like, it's just insane. And obviously that's just like, you know, the very like base level. But it's so odd to like look back and honestly even hear my voice from 5 years ago. It's like, whoa, like I kind of sound young. Like I sound like a kid. It's just so weird. It's so fun and it's special and it's just crazy. I cannot believe we're here, but also at the same time, I'm like, I can't believe
It's
it took
been
5
long.
years to get here.
Yeah.
It's just insane. It's exciting, and I think this episode is such a good send off. I think to us, to Buffy, to everyone, it's so well done, and I think a series finales like this make me so happy because a series finale can really make or break a show. And I think we've talked about like the Merlins, the How I Met Your Mother, the
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Yes, like these huge series that became so impactful and could have really, really had this amazing ending and truly just, you know, failed.
Bombed it.
And in
Like
some
bombs,
ways kind
like
of
these are big
reframed the
bombs.
whole show. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yes.
sometimes a really, really bad finale can taint the entire show. And like I can still watch certain shows, but like Merlin's last season truly almost made me like tap out. I was like, it reframes the lore of the entire show leading up to it.
It's not even the last season, because the last season is actually really good. I like the last season. It's just the last episode. Same thing with How I Met Your Mother. Last season, fine. The last 2 episodes, bad. Same thing with Game of Thrones, and I'll die on this hill. The last season is not their best, obviously, but it really only comes to an issue the last episode because it's very clunky. It's very clunky and there's a lot of loose ends, and, you know,
They just don't do it well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people get so caught up in the idea of wanting to do something for shock value that they don't stay true to the heart of the show. And I think that's what's so beautiful. And I've been waiting 5 years to get on this pulpit. What is so beautiful about the ending of this show, about this episode, is that Buffy lives. I need that in all caps. I need that everywhere. Not only does Buffy live, She gets to live the life she never got to. It is,
And she
she
never thought
doesn't
she'd have.
Yes, she doesn't have this burden of the world on her shoulders anymore. She gets to carry it with everyone. And that is why I will sit through the hate of season 6 and season 7, through the highs and the lows of all of it, because this ending is worth it to me. I'm so happy. Buffy could have died, and I think it wouldn't have ruined the show. I still think it could have been beautiful. Blah, 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 blah. Like, let's say if the ending mirrored more of a season 5 type of ending where
But
she
I think that's the
sacrificed herself
ending
for
we
the
were
world.
expecting.
Exactly. I think it still would have been good and it still would have been impactful. But getting to the end and seeing Buffy live just makes me so unbelievably happy. And it's not because I like a happy ending, because I do love a happy ending.
But
But
sometimes it feels fake and forced.
well, yes, but
And this one wasn't.
it feels earned. Buffy's ending feels earned. She has died twice. She's literally crawled back from the grave, been ripped from heaven. She has gone through hell on earth for seasons. She's put up with everything. She deserves to live. And I'm so happy that she gets to live, and she gets to live in a more quality life than she has. It's just, it's so beautiful, and it just makes me so happy. And I wish more directors watched shows like this and Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I can't think of, I'm blanking, but a lot of other shows where it perfectly ends in a way that, sure, maybe it was, you could have predicted it, maybe not exactly how it happened, but the fact that the protagonist survives. But it's like the way in which it happened, their life is way more impactful than their death ever would have been. And that just makes me so happy.
I have so many thoughts on this episode that I feel like will only make sense scene by scene, because I was like watching this and obviously I remember everything about the episode, but it's different when you have undivided attention just sitting there and absorbing it. And I was like, man, like, why does this episode feel simultaneously 20 minutes and 3 hours? Like, every time I watch it, I'm like, there's no way this is 42 minutes.
There's a lot he packs into this episode.
Yes. I do think, I really, 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 really think it could have improved upon having a part 2.
Yeah.
Being like an hour and a half would be perfect. Specifically just the fighting sequence. Like, I know there was a lot we had to get through and there was no like wasted space. And he did a really good job for the 42 minutes. Like, we really got everything we needed to in the episode and I appreciate it. But like, I could have taken another 45 minutes.
That tends to be a common criticism. Most everybody's like, it should have been longer.
But the pacing for what they were given was well done.
It was tight, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so bizarre to me that we get to this series finale and everyone's expecting Buffy to die. And the unexpected route is the fact that she lives. And I think that kind of what you're saying, Leah, it's so hard to find a TV show where they do something unexpected and brilliant and satisfying, but also completely true to what the characters
and the heart of the
true
show,
to the character's arc and the heart of the show and everything. Like, it is so hard to find a show like that because a lot of people feel like they have to go out with a bang. So they often choose a really controversial ending. Lost would be one, that sometimes I think people forget we watch these shows and sure, like with Lost and stuff, there's this element of like anticipation. Like, I want to know what the secret is, what the surprise is. But they forget that we watch these shows ultimately because we connect with the characters. Like, I would not watch a show where I hated the characters, even if there was a mystery. Like, that alone cannot keep me watching a show for seasons and seasons on end. I have to feel some sort of connection to the characters and actually care whether they live or die and what happens in their lives. And so I think this finale still goes down as one of the best finales I've ever seen. That doesn't mean that the episode itself is like fantastic. I think this episode is good. I don't think it's great, but it is uber satisfying and it hits all the right emotions and it is really fun to watch, really emotional, really impactful.
I just wish we had more time with some scenes. you know?
Right. I think it could have been great if there was a few other things like tweaked, and we'll talk about it, but I don't care at the end of the day. And that's something I'm going to talk about as we get into this episode. There's analyzing the episode and there's just watching it for sheer enjoyment. And I'm going to do a little bit of analyzing, but guys, any gripes I have with this episode, it's really not going to matter.
I agree. This episode is fully like putting my vibe hat on.
Yeah,
like,
this is me vibing.
I think about like halfway through the episode, I was like,
yeah, what are you going to do?
There was a few times throughout the episode where I was like, I don't like this. And then I just got to the point where I was like, you know what, actually, I don't care. I'm not going to think about it. I will say, and I mean this from the bottom of my soul, love interests that have been here less than a season should not have gotten any screen time.
No, that was my biggest. Yes,
from the top of my head to the bottom of my tippy tiptoe. Because the thing is why is Kennedy on my screen? Why is Wood on my screen? I don't give a flying freaking booty hole about them. They could die, they could live, they could multiply. It does not matter.
Well,
I
would care if they multiplied, but yes.
Yeah, true. But I'm like, guys, I don't care. I don't care. And I mean that in a way that is violent. Like, please don't be on my screen.
Especially
I put up with you for a whole season. Like, get off. I don't care. I don't care. Put Giles on my screen. Put anyone on my screen who has been here for more than a season. At this point, you need seniority to be in this episode. There should have been some sort of line at this casting being like, nope, you've only been in here 4 episodes. Yeah, you don't even get a line.
I also,
you don't even get a scene.
I know we're jumping the gun a little bit, but we did not, and I actually truly mean this, like genuinely, not in like a way because I don't care about Faith and Wood's relationship. We actually did not need this conversation. Like, we did not need it at all. They could have just hooked up and then we went into battle. Who cares? It's like this show sometimes is so obsessed with like the idea that none of at least the women can casually hook up with people. It has to mean something, either bad or good. And so it's like, especially with Faith, it's like, guys, she's good now, so therefore she's going to have a lasting relationship with her one night stand that she was trying to get away from, and Wood's going to teach her something. And it's like, okay, so Faith can be good, but then also still be Faith at the same time. And it's okay if she doesn't want a relationship. It was just so unnecessary.
Yeah. I'll save my thoughts until we get there because I have a lot to say probably about every single scene and very similar to what you guys have to say. But all that to say, can't believe this is the last episode. This is a great finale, but let's dissect it. Let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Also, I'm going to be stumbling over my words today. I'm getting over like some sort of a flu. It's crappy timing. I honestly thought about postponing this episode because I was like, but I was like, no, we're going to do this. So here we are. Okay. This episode was nominated for both the 2003 Emmy Award in the category of Special Visual Effects for a Series and for the 2004 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. I can't tell you how irritating it is, you guys, to constantly like read these episodes and be like, this episode was nominated. This episode was nominated. And hardly any of them won. Mm-hmm. Like, it's ridiculous. It was originally planned as a 2-hour event, but UPN only ordered 22 episodes instead of the required 23, which, listen, y'all, we could have dipped into the past 2 episodes and spread some of the love around. You didn't need 23 episodes. You could have just you didn't need 22 episodes to tell the story you were telling in season 7, but I digress. Joss Whedon actually wrote the last scene of this episode at the same time as the season opener lesson. So he always knew where he was going. He always knew what the ending was, which I don't think is a shocker. If you watch this season, there are a lot of complaints about this season, but I never for once go, oh, I wonder where they're going to go. Oh, I don't think they know where they're going. No, they know where they're going. In an interview before this episode aired, Joss Whedon said, if nobody cries, then I've definitely failed. It's really emotional. You're supposed to laugh, cry, and gasp with excitement, as well as take away a beautiful feminist message. When Allison Hannigan was asked by interviewer Fred Topel what it was like shooting the last day of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Hannigan answered, it was very, very bittersweet, an emotional day for everyone. It was lots of tears, lots of hugs. It was great. And then while speaking at the Wizard World Chicago convention in August 2004, Joss Whedon revealed, and we brushed on this briefly. I don't know that we talked about this in the spoiler-free episode. We definitely talked about it in the spoiler episode, but Joss had talked about how he had planned to bring the character of Tara back from the dead at the end of season 7. So
Like, why did he say that? He hates us for real. Like, if that wasn't gonna happen and it didn't happen, then keep your mouth shut.
Tara, instead of freaking stupid Pratt Kennedy, bro. This episode, I think, solidified that I was valid in still not liking her, because why is she on the screen so much? Like, she had way too much screen time in this episode, and I mean that sincerely. Like, why was she there? I don't care if you have a tongue piercing, weirdo. I don't care. Oh my god. Like, please, like, I just let me see Willow alone. I want to see Willow outside of Kennedy. Please.
Again, I think that Joss was trying really hard he used certain people to pull out certain aspects of his characters and then just shoehorned those same characters in with the new people the entire time. So Faith has her wood thing. Kennedy is with Willow. Xander didn't really have anybody, so he's with Buffy. Like, you could see Joss pairing people up so that he could have certain conversations and bring things out. And again, I suspect he didn't want to have Willow with Buffy or Faith with Buffy because that would give away his ending, his super shocking ending. And so that's why he intentionally had people fragmented, because he wanted the huge reveal, but at the cost of some really great character moments. But yeah, that's just my hypothesis. But anyway, okay. Remember, we talked about this back in, I think it was The Killer in Me. Oh, no, it was Conversations with Dead People. We talked about how Amber Benson was asked back by Joss Whedon, but she refused. And I had quoted this whole thing by Joss being really upset and saying that I had this super great story planned out, and basically, like, Amber Benson ruined it. And he was like, I was going to cry. You were going to cry. Everyone was going to cry. And then I had to go back to our writers and basically be like, hey, so you know that story that made all of us cry? We'll scrap it. We can't do it. And he kind of like blamed Amber Benson for that. So it sounds like he had this in mind the entire time. People are skeptical because a lot of Joss's stuff is he like tends to like look back on things and say things and just pull it out of his butt. Hence the, oh, Dawn not trusting Buffy it's all supposed to pay off in that moment where she tases Xander last episode. So in the panel at Comic-Con, this was his idea, his plan. So Joss says, I did have a secret plan to bring her back that never came to fruition. Sadly, Whedon told a panel at Comic-Con in 2007, in season 7, my original intent was to do an episode in which Buffy was basically granted a wish. She got one get out of jail free card, anything you want in the whole world, no restrictions, and she couldn't decide for the entire episode what to get. And finally came to Willow and said, you know those shoes that I always really wanted, but they're really expensive? I got them. And Willow's like, you used your wish on shoes? And Buffy says, of course not, and walks out of the room, and Willow turns around and Tara is standing there. And a lot of now Leah's gonna cry.
No, and the thing is, it's just so sad. Like, why would you even talk about it if it doesn't happen? In my mind, after the finale, in like a week or something, that does happen, and Tara does come back.
Yeah, and according to him,
goes by.
That would have actually been really interesting. According to him, it was supposed to happen in the 3rd or 4th to last episode. So around Touched, probably that would have been what would have happened. But he says that it didn't happen for various and ridiculous reasons, citing most likely Amber Benson's not trusting him with
he's
that
such
whole
a troll. Like, anytime he doesn't get his
really
way,
is.
he's like, okay, everyone sucks. It's like one of those kids that, like, you try to reprimand and then
he's
they
really
just start,
incapable
like,
of taking criticism. He's not able to see himself as the problem.
He can't get in trouble alone. Such a middle schooler. Yeah. He's like, well, they were with me too. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah. So, I mean, as sad as that is, at the same time, I mean, I would have loved to see Tara back, but it's also really hard. Like Amber Benson said, it's hard to trust whether or not that was always going to be his original plan. What if he would have brought Tara back and then just killed her in the finale? Like, there's things that I could see him doing that we just don't know. And so Amber Benson, I think, made the right call. But at this point, so Buffy the series was still on UPN while Angel the series was on the WB. So what ended up happening was the WB let the cat out of the bag that Spike was not actually going to die. He was going to be going over on Angel. And Joss got really, really angry because he was like, that ruins Spike's death in the finale because now everybody knows he's just going to be going over to Angel. James Marsters has a funny quote. He says, Angel had no loyalty to Buffy, so they had no reason to keep the secret. I was just like, light me on fire, okay? I'm fine. All right, so caveat. I got a lot of like fun facts from IMDb. Now, in doing this show, I have found that IMDb is notoriously inaccurate in a lot of the things that they say. Not everything. Some stuff is accurate, some stuff is not. As I was going through, I was finding some stuff that was very not true. So anything that I did find, I try to corroborate with like second or third sources. There were a few things I could not find extra facts to. So take this with a grain of salt. So one of the things that I found on IMDb is apparently Joss Whedon confirmed that the future deaths of any potential, now actual Slayers, would not activate a new Slayer. The line would eventually dwindle back to one. So that could be, I mean, look at his Frey comics, where in the future there's only one Slayer again. So it's possible that this. And I find this insanely fascinating, and we don't have to talk about it now. Let's save it for like maybe our next episode.
Yeah, for the
that
reboot, that makes it interesting.
I think that makes it very interesting. What if the Slayer line is dying out, and that's why Buffy has to kind of get back into action? That would be kind of cool.
But also, poor Buffy.
Yeah, also, I know. And that's the other thing. Like,
what if we started the reboot similarly to like season 7, where like a bunch of the Slayers are being killed and wiped out? That would be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it would. So anyway, we'll shelve that for next week because that'll be really interesting, exciting to talk about. But so Joss Whedon knew he wanted a happy finale. He said in order to do that, he knew he could not kill any member of the core original group or Dawn for Buffy to have a true happy ending. It was settled on Anya after Emma Caulfield Ford requested it. If the show was picked up for an 8th season, of which there were talks about continuing it out without Sarah Michelle Gellar, that was ultimately abandoned by the network. She did not want to return. A year later, he would do the exact opposite with Angel, the series finale. He stated he was in so much pain because of the early cancellation. He translated that pain to the finale to be shared.
Oh, brother.
Oh, brother. This man really likes to punish people when he is having a bad day, doesn't he?
Guys, I'm telling you, it's giving middle school boy. I just can't.
So Joss says, I feel that I wrote the perfect ending for the show and wrapped everything up exactly the way it should be. We wanted to hit the final chord of a beautiful symphony. That, unfortunately, was in season 5. So with season 7, I sort of had to shut the door on the idea that this was the last episode a little bit because the weight of that was crushing me. I was terrified, but I so very specifically knew what I needed to say and what I needed to have happen. That was all in there. But when you get into actually writing it, you're just like, oh God, it's not good enough. Then you're like, dude, you've got to chill because it's unbearable pressure. You want the last episode to mean something that no other episode has, and it is large. It was so hard to shoot. So we went out with a bang and hopefully an emotional one. And I think you can kind of tell that in this episode. Joss did a very good job with it, but it's not perfect by any means. I would say The Gift is a far more perfect episode and finale. It's just not quite as satisfying, I think.
I don't know if you want us to talk after that, but I agree. I concur.
You can if you want to.
Well, I didn't really have much to add. I just wanted you to know that I also agree that The Gift was a tighter episode. But I like this episode better as a finale because I like when people don't die.
Exactly. No, 100%. I'm glad the show didn't end in season 5.
Anya dying eraser.
Like, oh.
But that's okay. If anyone's going to die, it's okay. People are going to get so mad that I'm leaving.
Tabby's hatred for Anya.
Oh my God. No, I
here's
don't.
The thing.
Guys, it's not a hatred. I'm just playing into the joke. It's sad she died. Everyone dying, I'm happy with her.
Insert a clip from Tabby.
What I mean is, I don't like people dying just for the sake of shock value. I think that Anya and Giles, who should have died,
Amen,
were not like it wasn't a just fruitless death. Like it was a purpose. It made sense. And
there's casualties in war.
Yeah, and it also just felt like a long time coming.
Yeah.
I don't hate Anya. I actually really like Anya. But I do feel like this was the best thing for her character at this time. Well, at the only time.
I was like, well, there's no other time.
This was her time. We'll see about future. Yeah. She's resurrected as a ghost. So Critically Touched says, I will say that I feel Chosen fails on a plot level, but wildly succeeds on a thematic and overall enjoyment level. If the plot had been sanity checked, and yeah, this is a great way of putting it. If the plot had been sanity checked for more than a few seconds and the episode had been given more room to breathe, i.e. been made into a two-parter, I think we might have been looking at a perfect score. But alas, it was not to be. What we have instead is the epitome of a great episode that's rough around the edges. But in the end, I feel it gets the most important pieces right. And I agree.
It nails the landing, but it was a little shaky there at times where I was like, are we going to land it?
There's a few things I kind of have to be like, don't think about it too hard. Just vibe along. But thematically, it's very satisfying. And Buffy's happy, so I'm good.
Yeah.
And then just to kind of like set us up and get us into the episode, I love how the big reveal in this episode was basically spelled out for us in Get It Done. After Buffy leaves to go to the Shadow Realm, she leaves Willow and the rest, and you have Willow realizing that she has to do a spell and everyone ends up working together. How we have Willow having to transfer the energy / power, and she does so in Get It Done by pulling power from Kennedy and Anya, but here she does it by tapping into the scythe as the talisman for Slayer power or girl power. Then the exchange in Get It Done was swapping out the demon for Buffy, and in this episode it's a restoring of the balance between good and evil. Many Slayers balance out the power of the first, and in that episode you also have Buffy rejecting more power from the Shadowmen because it means disconnecting her further from her humanity. She also learns how the system was created, and in breaking the staff and totem, because Tabby was all about the symbolism of the penis, she rejects it. Now she's using the totem of women, the scythe that's very curved, looks like uterus, forged by the Guardians, and is restoring things back to the way they should be. Restoring balance.
Just not expecting you saying that. Wow. I forgot about that. Okay.
Do you remember that now? Because I was like, that is not a penis reference.
I was not expecting you saying that.
You were right. I was totally egging you on.
If we're really going to talk about the metaphors here, one side is shaped like a penis and the other is the vagina with the
curved. Yep. The curved vagina. Absolutely.
I'm just kidding. Space.
But I do we've talked about weapons a ton this season, or I say we. I have talked about weapons a lot this season and about how they symbolize something, and they've intentionally used very masculine or male-coded weaponry, and now we have the scythe because the scythe is the talisman, basically, and the representation of Buffy's power. And I love that now she's using the totem of women, forged by the Guardians, and is restoring balance to everything. She's the chosen one, guys. And balance is what this season and this show has often been about as we watch the story about adolescence unfold. Buffy striving for balance between her human life and her Slayer life, Willow between her witch side and her human side, Xander between the societal expectations of toxic masculinity versus being comfortable with who he really is, Giles with being a watcher and Ripper and Buffy's surrogate dad, Spike between his Spike persona and who he is now as an ensouled vampire, also having a bit of William inside of him and all of that. The list goes on and on. And this season was a lot about figuring out who you are and embracing and kind of accepting both parts of yourself and using that for good and really using your power for good. And the first evil, wanting to get rid of balance and making it all about evil and power, is essentially at its core getting rid of any person's ability to choose. If there is no good, there's no free will, and everyone just becomes a part of a hive mind, essentially. And we all know that being unable to make an active choice is the biggest no-no in this very existential show. So to be human is to be an active participant in one's life, and you can't do that if you aren't making active decisions. So in a lot of ways, this entire episode is, and even the first evil, is a representation of what it means to make a choice and what it means to fight for your voice, basically, and your opportunity to choose. So it really is thematically very, very satisfying, very beautiful. And every single season finale, I've always brought it back to connection and brought it back to Buffy leaning into her friends, her family, and finding balance, whether it be through faith, through Kendra, whatever that is. And I love how this just wraps all that up perfectly. So, all right, long introduction done. Let's jump into the episode. All right, so we are back. I mean, we just start off real high, guys. We just start off real high. We're still in the crypt. Buffy and Angel are still mid-kiss. It's like
I always
glorious.
forget this is in the same episode.
Right?
Like, I just always feel like this is just in the last episode. But I'm like, man, like so much happened in the last episode. If I say episode one more time, guys, actually shoot me.
I also really love how this moment between Buffy and Angel, this is a freaking long scene.
It is.
Because you have inside the crypt, then you have in the graveyard. And that's not me like saying that's a bad thing. This is me really enjoying that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's so wonderful because it is probably the only part of the episode where we're actively just chilling. Yeah. Like we're sitting, we're having a long conversation.
And yes. And of course.
And here's the thing too is in an episode that Joss Whedon feels the need to stress how much little time he has.
True.
I feel like it speaks volumes that he spends a pretty significant amount of the episode.
So much time.
With just freaking Buffy and Angel essentially affirming each other that they still are into each other. And being
guys,
like,
also
right now the end of the world is happening, but like, you still look good, I still look good, we're still kind of both single, like we kind of still like each other, and maybe in like give us a few years, and like it's literally like the fact that this is in that final episode is just so funny to me because it's like, guys, I fear it's a little obvious. Why would he be here if not?
But also just she says something this episode, I don't know why I had never remembered. And I'm like, why is no one talking about this? She's literally talking about how she thinks about him sometimes in the future of them ending up together. And in the same conversation says, yeah, I don't think about a future with Spike. She literally says that. She says, I don't think about kids in a future with Spike. She says that, guys. Yep. How come I never remembered that?
I didn't even catch that. That's funny.
I will say, I remember that. I will say, as someone who...
like, I did.
I'm just like surprised.
No,
I literally was like,
trust me, guys, listen.
Someone
as someone who does love Spike and does love Buffy and Spike together, my heart did hurt a little bit seeing the kind of like...
Mine didn't.
I know yours didn't. I'm saying for me, I'm saying
we know, sir.
Seeing poor Spike like kind of open his heart and then seeing Buffy and Angel together, it's like, dang, like that sucks. Like I get it, but I also I like the fact that all three of them handle this in a way. But I like the fact that all three of them handle this in a way that's very like, we understand that we're all adults. Yeah. This is the end of the world. Things are complicated. 2 of us are vampires. 1 of us is Vampire Slayer. Like, none of this is necessarily realistic anyways. So I like that they're all kind of having a calm head of like, we don't really know what's happening and we're not going to fault anyone. Because
we'll address it if any of us survives.
If it was the last episode and Spike spent like even freaking 2 minutes being annoying and being like, me, I would have been pissed. But like, I like the way that Spike handles it. He shows that he's upset and he kind of like stands his ground, and then he ultimately gets to a place of like, all right, you know what? It's the end of the world tomorrow. Whatever. Like, and I'm happy that they acknowledge that there is things going on, but that ultimately there's something more important.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. Remember how I was talking about how they use certain characters to have an in-depth heart-to-heart conversation, like they're pairing people up in order to have these conversations. So Willow with Kennedy, Wood with Faith. It's so fascinating to me that it's Buffy and Angel. Like, we don't have Buffy and Spike having an in-depth heart-to-heart conversation. And frankly, even in the episode Touched, it's mostly Spike talking to Buffy and encouraging Buffy, but we don't hear a lot about Buffy and where she's at and what she's processing and working through. We do a little bit, but it's not like a ton. And so having this like cookie dough speech, this is the end of Buffy's arc. in this scene. And it's so impactful that she's talking to Angel about it. And it's just really nice to see Angel just sitting there listening and processing and just letting her talk. And that's something we haven't really had with Spike. Like, she doesn't open up with Spike like she does with Angel. And this isn't me trying to like pit or bash the two of them. It's more of just, I've been missing having Buffy really open up to people or anyone in a very vulnerable way. And so it was just really nice. And it was wonderful that it was Angel, because it feels very true to how it's always been for her, you know?
She's always had her guard down with Angel.
Yes.
Like, Angel has just had the most raw, open part of her always, and she's always had that of him. And it really comes across in this episode, which is insane because they have not acted together in like, what, years at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I think anytime Angel's on screen, when he was heavily in the show and then when he would pop back in, it's always a stark difference between even Buffy and her closest friends. Her conversations with Willow, there are few and far between where Buffy's actually able to have an open conversation about the Slayer part of herself that she closes off to her friends in order to kind of protect them, but also to kind of, I don't know, it's like
it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I feel like with Angel, they've talked about it with them on screen together, but there's this kindredness with them both kind of having similar roles in the world. And he has this big responsibility because he is a vampire. So he's not a slayer, clearly, but like he has this responsibility because he has a soul and he is a vampire and he feels called to be a champion, all that sort of stuff. But whenever him and Buffy are on screen together, even if they're like not dating, there's this side of Buffy that we never get to see every time
we
they
haven't
interact.
seen for seasons, really.
Yeah, it's just like the ease in which she just opens up to him. I was like, it was stark. Like I was sitting there and I was watching it and I was like, man, I haven't seen this side of Buffy in so long. Even like when she makes it a joke and then starts giggling, I'm like, I can't remember
Yeah, I
the
don't remember
last
the
time
last
she's
time.
giggled at like something that she has said because she
Yeah.
feels that comfortability. And I know that's something small. And it's not to say that she hasn't laughed in the last couple seasons, probably not in season 7 or season 6, really. But it's just so obvious, like you guys are both saying. And I, again, like, why would they bring Angel back and have this conversation about like, okay, like maybe in the future, and then have Spike die in the same episode for it to like not be
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, I don't hate Spike. I know that's shocking to everyone. It's just more of a frustration on how the writers utilized him and how the writers, like, they could have set up a really great redemption arc. They could have set up all this stuff. I really am enjoying Spike over in season 5 of Angel. I'm really enjoying talking about him a lot. I think he actually thrives best when he is away from Buffy and when he's not such a focal point in a season. But it's been a real bummer because I feel like the Spike and Buffy of it all this season has kind of been a black hole for me with the writing and stuff. And so having this and having minimum Spike in this, Spike honestly was utilized very well in this episode. I actually really enjoyed his whole role here, but it's just been very hard to watch this season and be kind of, and especially leading up till now and just watching it kind of suck the life out of everything, along with other things. It's not just Spike, but anyway. And the crazy thing about all this is that I double checked with the commentary. So David Boreanaz was only available for 7 hours to film his scenes. 7 hours, guys.
Boy, did they make those 7 hours count.
They really did. And I mean, that's hard to do. Both of them are professionals. All right. So Angel says, well, I guess that qualifies as happy to see me. Buffy says, Angel, what are you doing? No, don't even. I just want to bask. And then they just look at each other. The script says warm and giddy. The smile is still on Buffy's lips as she says, okay, I'm basked. What are you doing here? He says, not saving the damsel in distress. That's for sure. And she says, you know me, not big with the damseling. And then he grabs a file from the corner, which cracks me up. So like he came in the crypt, saw Buffy in trouble, set the file down, yelled at Caleb, and then backhanded him. So he's like, hey, I got coverage on this whole thing, hands the file to Buffy, which I'm super curious about what was in that file. Like, can we have more information on what's going on with this amulet thing? Also, I just want to point out too, you can tell Joss Whedon wrote and directed this episode. The shots are more dynamic, the color and the shadow is more interesting, the characters have more snap, the dialogue is a little bit peppier. Even like Sarah Michelle Gellar looks happier and just like more on, like not as tired and exhausted. I don't know if it's the last episode. It's just, it had a little bit of the old spark to it, and it was so glaringly like in contrast to the previous episodes. It was really bizarre. So then Angel's like, it's the first evil, right? The one that tried to convince me to kill myself. And then just as he's about to tell her something important, Caleb gets back up. His eyes are black, dark blood dripping from everywhere. I was like, Leah, it's the Valg. He's like, you ready to finish this, bitch?
No, I know.
Uncanny.
The way he says it, it's so funny because it's like, you know how some people when they cuss, it sounds like they just learned it for the first time ever.
Me?
That's
Yes.
literally what he sounded
That
like.
is Sarah.
Was like he was practicing it in the mirror before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so funny.
Yeah. But it's also funny because he's been like the preacher guy with the Southern accent all season long. So we've been expecting like a little bit more like watered down
And you know
version.
what? Like this episode is like very feminist, very like, yay girls. But what I think is like the cherry on top is like in the middle of like another sexist speech. He's like, you know what? I'm just gonna split you in half starting from, you guessed it, your penis. I just love that.
Like it's so like
She cuts him off
cheesy and on the nose,
mid-sentence.
but it works
Yep.
well. Like somehow it just works.
This episode is just camp. Like you just kind of
It
let
really
yourself
is.
enjoy the overdramaticness of it.
Yeah.
It's back to form.
Yep. The script says that Spike's watching this entire time and is not sure what to do while Caleb and Buffy fight. So then they fight, and then she, like you guys said, gets the scythe and ends up slicing him straight from the balls up. And he's like, "You'll never stop me. You don't have the..." And she's like, "Well, who does nowadays?" And then just as we like tastefully hear him fall in two pieces on either side, Angel stands up, is furious, and is like, "Okay, I'm pissed. Where is he?" And then Buffy indicates both sides of the floor and goes, "He had to split." So funny. The puns are back, you guys. It's great.
I'm not a pun girly myself,
Yes.
but I
Sarah's
will
so
say
tickled.
Angel literally being like, all right, let me at this guy after like literally getting hit and then trying to kill him, and Buffy's like, yeah, I already took care of him. Like that had me rolling.
The script has a little part after this that was cut out where after Buffy like snorts with dorkish laughter, Angel just shakes his head reprovingly, and she says, "I'm sorry, I haven't had a good pun in a while." And Angel says, "That would still be the case." And she says, "Hey, my kill, my wordplay." And he goes, "I'm out of line," holds his hands up. And she goes, "Well, I'm still glad you're here." That's when the verse says to Spike, "Yeah, she needs you real bad." Angel gives her the amulet and says that he's not really 100% sure about it. It's very powerful, probably very dangerous, has a purifying power or cleansing power or possibly scrubbing bubbles. He says it bestows strength worn by the right person. He says it's someone ensouled but stronger than a human, a champion, as in me. And she goes, "Or me?" And he goes, "No, I don't think, or no, I don't know nearly enough about this to risk you wearing it. Besides, you've already got that cool axe thing." She says, "So you're going to be with me in this?" And he says, "Shoulder to shoulder, I'm yours." So one of the things I really love about this episode is Joss, having written this, having written so many of the other stuff in Buffy, knows how to throw little things in there that are callbacks to previous moments. And this, between Buffy and Angel in particular, have a lot of callbacks to Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest. So that moment where he says, "Shoulder to shoulder, I'm yours," in Buffy and Angel's very first meeting in the alleyway in Welcome to the Hellmouth, Angel gives Buffy another necklace, the cross necklace. So we have another parallel there. And Buffy says, "Who are you?" And he says, "Let's just say I'm a friend." He starts to leave and she goes, "Yeah, well, maybe I don't want a friend." And he says, "I didn't say I was yours." And so this is supposed to be a callback to "I'm yours." And like the little like French.
Yes. They're so beautiful.
I know. And then
There are a lot of callbacks to different conversations.
there are so many callbacks. So Spike leaves at this point. He's like, "I see where this is going." And then Buffy says, "No." Angel says, "No, what?" And she says, "No, you're not going to be in this fight." And he says, "Why the hell not?" And she says, "'Cause I can't risk you." So he says, "I can't risk you." She goes, "I can't risk you either." And then in the harvest callback. This is when Angel comes to see her in the mausoleum when she's about ready to go down to rescue Jesse from the Master. Angel tells her not to go down to where the Master is to get Jesse, says, "You shouldn't be putting yourself at risk. Tonight is the harvest. Unless you can prevent it, the Master walks." And she goes, "Well, if this harvest thing is such a suckfest, why don't you stop it?" And he goes, "Because I'm afraid." She looks at him for a moment, and then he says, "They'll be expecting you." She says, "I've got a friend down there, at least a potential friend. Do you know what it's like to have a friend?" He lowers his eyes as a look of sadness fills them. She says, "That wasn't supposed to be a stumper." So just like the full circle thing of like how he never really had friends. He didn't have any connections to the world. And I think it's so interesting how we now have this like character development both together and individually of how Angel now has friends. He's fighting evil. He's doing good. He's living with purpose because of Buffy. And these moments in Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest also set up a big motivator for Angel, which ends up being friendship and connection with others, which is a big thing in his series. But also how afraid he was to stand up and do what was right back in the early seasons and fight against his nature at the beginning. But now, thanks to Buffy, he's willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with her against this evil. And so I just think how amazing it is that Angel's willing to step up in this moment and actually go in with her to the apocalypse. And the whole "I'm yours" is just like chef's kiss. It's so cute.
My hypothesis, and this is probably not correct.
I know what you're going to say.
I know what you're a lot of hate for this, and it's probably best that it's coming from me and not from anyone else on the podcast, because I'm already easy to hate at. Anyways,
if you didn't say it, I was going to say it.
Yeah. In my mind.
In my mind too.
Not only does Buffy, yes, think that there may be the possibility that it gets out of Sunnydale and she does need someone to hold a second friend. I do think that's accurate. I also think there's a little bit of a kernel of her that doesn't really want to risk Angel wearing the amulet. Because they don't know what it is. And so for her, she's willing to take her chance. Guys, I'm so sorry, but like I do kind of read the scene as she's willing to risk Spike over Angel.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm sorry. Guys, I know. Trust me, it eats at me too because I do love Spike, but like that is the only way I can interpret the scene is that like she weighed the costs. And in her mind, she chose.
She made a choice, guys. This episode's all about choice.
And I will say,
Spike has been chosen.
He has been obviously,
you are my elite employee.
Obviously, everyone in this episode chose. Like, they make it very obvious. Like, she tells him about the amulet.
Spike
she tells
chooses.
him about it. Like, Spike chooses to wear it. And I 100% like know that if he didn't choose to wear it, she A, would have either tried to wear it herself or B, not used it. So he was not forced, he was not tricked, you know.
She also didn't protest much.
Like not at all. But I don't know. I just think that there is always like Buffy and Angel are always gonna protect each other. Like baseline period. Like you see that episode 1 all the way to the last episode. And I know I'm gonna get hate for that. Thank God we'll be on a hiatus after this episode. But
I'll send you screenshots.
That is I'm sure there will be emails. I'm sure there will be comments. I'm sure I will get doxxed. But I just like, you know, and I don't believe it's a malicious thing where Buffy's like,
no,
I'm gonna get rid of Spike.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you.
I think it's more so of like she thought that the amulet would kind of take a toll on its wearer and legitimately wanted Angel away from the fight. And I think that's more so what it is Buffy didn't feel like Angel was necessary in this fight anymore. I think if Angel had asked her at the beginning of the series or beginning of the season, she would have asked him to stay because she felt more dire. But because she actually had a plan and all that by this point, I think that she didn't feel as desperate and she wanted to save as many people as she could.
I mean, I don't think
she could save Angel.
I don't think she had the plan yet, which it does. you're the whole like, oh my gosh, her needing a champion, saying Spike's the strongest person we got. Her not wanting to risk Angel could actually make up for the plot hole that we all have been really irritated with this entire season of why hasn't she just called Angel up? It's possible she hasn't called Angel up because she knows that the first got under his skin the last time. And so she doesn't want to call Angel in case that it happens again. But yeah, it's hard not to take that, especially with the whole thing between Spike and Buffy coming up and all the other stuff. But yeah, we'll talk about it. The second thing that IMDb said, which I have the shooting script in front of me, and I looked in two separate places at two separate links, and neither shooting script had this in there. But IMDb says that in the original script, the conversation between Buffy and Angel was longer, having Angel reveal to Buffy that he loved Cordelia and that he had a son, making Buffy the only one that knew of Connor. This was ultimately changed so as not to confuse too much of Angel's storyline with Buffy. Again, that's nowhere in the shooting script. And I highly doubt if they knew they only had David Boreanaz for 7 hours that they would have added any more stuff in there. So again, IMDb adds things and I'm like, there's no way to corroborate this. So we continue on. Angel's like, you need me in this. Buffy says, no, I need you gone. Angel says, why? She's kind of cagey. She says, I need a second front. I need you to run it. And he's like, okay, that's one reason. What's the other? She moves out into the graveyard. He goes, is it Spike? You're not telling me something. And his scent, I remember it pretty well. Buffy says, you vampires, didn't anyone ever tell you that the whole smelling everybody thing is a little gross? Oh, I love that. All those fantasy books. That's what I think about every single time. And then Angel says, is he your boyfriend? Buffy says, is that your business? He says, are you in love with him? The script says beat. Buffy can't answer. Angel says, maybe I'm out of line, but this is kind of a curveball for me. We are talking about Spike here. And I just want to say, I really like how Angel he's obviously jealous for good reason. He doesn't like the idea of them together because it's Spike, but he doesn't judge her for possibly being in love with Spike even before he knew that Spike had a soul. He doesn't immediately jump to judgmental conclusions.
Buffy, she doesn't just jump into things. She has to think things through. He's like, oh, I trust her. I trust her judgment,
Yeah, but even if not, I don't know, I just really appreciate that he didn't immediately go, he doesn't have a soul and all that stuff. Because then Buffy tells him he's different. He has a soul now. Angel, oh, well, he's like, no, that's great. Everybody's got a soul now. This is cut out. Buffy goes, what, are you pissed? And Angel goes, no, it's great. One for our side.
It's a little moody, like, oh, I was the first one who did it.
He's like, I started.
It's
was
so
all cool.
funny to me. Like, Angel's little, jealous, pissy
petty
self
Angel
is my favorite.
So funny.
Yes,
very
so
petty.
Funny. Her, oh my God, are you 12? And he's like, I'm getting the brush off for Captain Peroxide. It doesn't bring out the champion in me. And then Buffy says, it's not the brush off. He says, for who? She says, everybody. Why are you going to come by and get all Dawson on me every time I have a boyfriend? He goes, aha, boyfriend. She says, he's not. And guys, this is the only line of Sarah Michelle Gellar's that I do not fully buy and that I find so incredibly cringy. She says, but he is in my heart. What does that mean?
Really?
I think
of
you're
all
just
the
a
lines?
Buffy hater,
Yeah, I think
Sarah.
because I feel like that was fine.
Which
the
is
execution
fine,
was fine.
own your truth. But I actually believe Buffy in this. I think that it's her. I don't think it's her being truthfully, I think it's her subtle way of trying to leave the door open for
exactly.
Angel,
She's
while
not
also
saying,
remaining truthful
Mhm.
to the fact that she does have feelings for Spike.
It could
But
be.
I think
I'm speaking
but
more.
I think she's specifically choosing her words carefully to show that it's more than, oh, I have a crush on him.
Right.
But it's less
she
than
does have
I'm in
some
love
sort
with
of
him.
feeling for him. Yeah, I think there's a love for him that she does have. I don't mean necessarily I don't believe Buffy when she says this. I mean that I think the line is cringy. I think Joss could have written a better line.
Yeah, I could
That's
get
what
down
I
with
mean.
that.
Because I understand what he's trying to convey, and normally Sarah Michelle Gellar can pull these lines off. Maybe it's the pause beforehand, which it kind of feels like she's trying to convince herself. But I just feel like the he's in my heart. It's a very, very obvious tactic of Joss to not specifically define it because he wants the reveal at the very end when she tells Spike, I love you. So to me, it's just a very stupid way of her trying to define the relationship without defining the relationship. That's all. So Andrew's like, that'll end well. Buffy's like, and what was the highlight of our relationship? The time you broke up with me or the time I killed you? And I love this moment because my headcanon is that in this moment, Angel's remembering, I will remember you. Because I think that to him, that is the highlight of their relationship, is that time that they got to spend, that day, that night together, where he was human, she was human. They could fully be together and have perfect happiness without him losing his soul. It just, and it's a total headcanon thing. There's nothing like it in the script, but it feels so much like he sits there and he gets this faraway look in his eyes while she's talking. And you just can't help but feel the weight of all these things that he's remembering in this moment. So she says, I'm well aware of my stellar history with guys, and no, I don't see fat grandchildren in the offing with Spike, but I don't think that matters right now. You know, in the midst of all this insanity, a couple things are actually starting to make sense. She says, you know, I've always figured there was something wrong with me because I never made it work, but maybe I'm not supposed to. And he says, because you're the Slayer. And this is such a well-written scene that has so many layers to it. A big criticism that people have for the Bangel relationship is that they feel like it's a girlhood love and that it didn't build up organically, that it happened too fast. And I think something we have always loved about the Buffy and Angel relationship was the way that they really see each other and connect to each other due to their shared experiences.
But
And
also, as somebody who had my first love when I was 17, it felt like that. Like, it felt like that in the beginning, where it's like you fall in love for the first time, you're experiencing this extreme emotion you've never felt before, and you're also like young and you have life ahead of you, and there's so much like possibility in that, and it feels so dramatic and like end of the world, and it feels like that. So,
yeah,
and it happens fast. Like, when you're young, you're like, "Oh my word," like, I'm, like, in love, like, immediately, because 'cause
you've never felt
you're
anything
a
like it. So
child,
it's
you know what I mean?
intoxicating. Yeah,
Yeah, and but I
totally.
will say, like, there's callbacks on purpose in this conversation, because she goes like, "Oh, things are starting to make sense," or, "This makes sense," or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and, I mean, one of the most important moments that's pivotal in Buffy and Angel's relationship, where she says, like, out of all the freaky things in my world, you're the thing that still makes sense to me. I remember that in season 2 when she says that to him. So, like, there's so many
Mm-hmm.
callbacks where it's like, you still make sense to me.
Yes.
The future, I still see with you. I still see you in it.
Yeah.
Even when I think I might die tomorrow, I still see you in my future if there is a possibility for us to be together, you know?
Mm-hmm. But I also see a little bit of a callback to Bad Eggs where she says, when you kiss me, I want to die. All I see in my future is you. Like the idea of her saying that she's not fully formed, not done baking yet, and her being okay with being single and stuff too. Like, yes, she still thinks about a future with Angel, but she's
Yeah.
also okay with being single too, which is huge for her. And we haven't really had this epiphany since, I don't know if you guys remember us talking about it, but it was in I Only Have Eyes for, was it I Only Have Eyes for You? No, it was the robot one. I can never remember what that one's called. The one right before the
I
body.
Robot Eugene.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
right
yeah.
before the body.
She says
It
I need to
In
was,
season
be
5.
okay with being alone with Buffy. Yeah.
yeah, she was talking about, and she came to this huge conclusion, but
Mhm.
then her life just fell apart after that and never recovered. And so it feels like because she's back on the upswing of life and doing better, there's a little bit more self-reflection. And I really love, guys, I cannot stress, I know this is going to shock people, love Buffy and Angel, but I cannot stress how amazing it is that Buffy ends the series single. That Buffy
Mhm.
ends the series with a blank slate and she can do whatever she wants without a
I
guy there.
agree.
Like,
Mhm.
I love that. And that's so revolutionary. Even in series today, you don't really see that. And I love that.
And the thing with Angel too is like they both have this understanding that they still have a lot to figure out. So
Yeah,
it's not like a, okay, if you survive, we'll be together. It's like, I see you in my future when the
absolutely.
timing is right. And right now, not only do I think I'm possibly might die tomorrow, but if I make it past that, there's still so much I want to figure out and experience. You
Hmm.
know? There's a freedom in that.
Totally. And I think that's the brilliance of this conversation because it works really well in talking about Buffy on her own and also about their relationship together. But it also does a really good
Yeah.
job with Angel's own history on his show because, like, you can see on David Boreanaz's face, there's like a myriad of complexities that can be interpreted in many ways. But the context on his show is he's literally just driven down from having watched his son Connor eat dinner at his new family's house and make future plans, all while Angel has to watch from the outside, being the only person that remembers that Connor exists. And season 4 was all about him desperately trying to hold on to his found family and his actual family, and in the hopes that he could have a normal life. And then it all just fell apart in the end. And so he's a force to erase everyone's minds. And I think given that, it feels like Angel would be thinking and relating a lot with what Buffy's saying here, and in realizing that maybe he's not supposed to make it all work out either. Maybe he'll Shanshu in the end, but maybe he won't. Either way, that normal life that he wants isn't going to happen, at least right now. And so Joss did a beautiful job of calling back to these two characters' shared history while also connecting it to their individual journeys that have led them to this moment. And I love that you can watch this moment without knowing what Angel's been through and still kind of resonate with that. But also, like, it's so much richer if you understand the context of where he's come from. So Buffy talks about cookie dough. I'm not done baking. I'm not finished becoming whoever the hell it is I'm going to turn out to be. I love the becoming, a nod back to both of them from Becoming Part 1 and Part 2, where it talked about them both, showed their parallel journeys. If I make it through this and the next thing and the next, maybe one day I turn around and realize I'm ready, I'm cookies. And then if I want someone to enjoy warm, delicious cookie me, then it's fine. That'll be then when I'm done. And Angel says, any thought on who might enjoy? Do I have to go with the cookie analogy? She says, I don't really think that far ahead. That's kind of the point, that the callback to bad eggs. About Buffy's cookie analogy, Whedon described, this speech about cookies was originally pitched, not cookies exactly, but I believe baking was in there by, drumroll, Marty Doxson, early in the season. And I think as a showrunner, I could have done a better job of bringing us to it. She comes to this conclusion a little bit out of the blue, and that's my fault. But we knew that emotionally, that's where we wanted her to get. And what we wanted to get to was the idea of my relationships don't work out because I'm still becoming a woman and finding my place. And I don't need to find the perfect guy at age 22 or however old Buffy is at this point. I can't wait. I can't wait till I'm fully formed. And I think that's a very important message. And when she thought about this in her own life and she told me, and I was like, I think that's exactly where we need Buffy to get. He also described having Angel and Spike as romantic interests for Buffy in the same episode, saying the speech about cookies helps with the other really complicated part of writing this episode, which was, how do you get Angel and Spike together in the same show, have her have the big emotion for both of them, and not make her seem like the slut queen of Slutdonia, as Marty herself would say. And this was the trick, how to get her in the sack with Spike half an act after Angel had left. The trick is always to make the audience go through exactly what she's going through. It's confusing to us emotionally that we should bounce from one to the other, and it's confusing to her, but Spike is the person in her life right now. We'll talk about that more in a second. So Angel gets it. He hands her the amulet, says, I'll start working on the second front, make sure I don't have to use it. The piano music that comes in right here is not their theme, but it's so reminiscent, and this is where I start to get emotional for the first time. And then he starts to walk away, and Buffy kind of like chases after him slightly and goes, Angel, I do sometimes think that far ahead. He stops, smiles a bit. She says, sometimes. And he goes, sometimes is something. And she says, it'd be a long time coming, years if ever. He walks backward in the dark, smiling at her. I ain't getting any older. He disappears into the shadows and she watches him go, and he leaves the same way he did the other two times.
No, and the thing is that they are married. They are married and they are happily in love, and I don't care about whatever is coming next. In my mind, and maybe this is why, and y'all can be the judge of this, and by y'all I mean whoever the heck is listening, maybe this is why some of y'all don't want me to do the reboot, because the thing is I am delusional.
Leah will actually crash out if they're not together.
I will fully just make up a narrative in my head.
She does do that.
I've done it for How I Met Your Mother in my head. Barney and Robin are still together. The mom never died, period. In my head, Arthur never died. Sorry. No. Like, they're all together. They're all happy. Like, in my mind, these endings don't happen. So I'm letting you know now, if the reboot comes out and I don't like it, you all will hate me. You will hate me because I will be insufferable. Absolutely,
you're just making people want to hear you talk about it more.
I'm telling you right now, she's probably not with Angel in the reboot. She's probably not.
Listen,
like I'm telling you right now,
she is with Angel, and I will say this: you know what would be even worse? The reboot happens, and she's with some regular Joe Schmo.
She probably
will be the case.
I will rage if that happens. I sat 7 seasons.
She's not
going
cookie dough
back
yet, Leah.
and forth between freaking Angel and Spike, and you're not going to choose either of them? Oh my gosh, I won't. I
Riley
can't do
shows
it.
back up.
Oh,
He's like,
I
hey,
would
Sam
actually.
died.
I
Sam
couldn't.
divorced me.
I couldn't. Oh Lord.
Give me a second chance there, Buffy.
Buffy's personal life just needs to never be talked about, or she's with Angel. That's where I land. Because then one of them I can project that she's with Angel, and the other one she is with Angel. So
yeah, this is where I start to get emotional. When he disappears and he backs away just like he did in graduation day, he does this thing where he's like, he doesn't want to stop looking at her. So the way that he like backs away looking at her and then slowly turns, it's like he's loath to leave. Ugh, it's so beautiful. And I start to get choked up because it's the last time we're ever going to see them on screen together. Okay. All right, moving on to other things. Now we're back in the Summers home. Buffy comes in and she sees Xander sitting at the dining room table looking pained and sheepish. Anya's rubbing his head. Giles and Will are there. And Dawn is standing right. How long was Dawn standing at the front door waiting for Buffy to walk in? And
she was
just
waiting.
She was waiting. Kicks Buffy
The little kick
right
to
in
the shin
face.
is so younger sibling.
Dumbass. And Buffy looks at Xander. He throws up his hands. He's like, don't look at me. This is a Summers thing. It's all very violent. And then Buffy says, you get killed. I'm telling to Dawn. And Dawn like shrugs like, yeah. And then Buffy tells them that she found this scythe, or that she found out more information about the scythe, that it dices and makes Julianne preacher. Giles looks like ecstatic. He's like, Caleb? He looks shocked. I'm like, bruh, really? This was cut out, but Buffy actually tells them that Angel was in town. She says that she got all this information from him. Dawn's like, Angel? Giles says he's here. Buffy says she sent him back to LA to prepare. She says, if we fall. In the basement, she goes downstairs and Spike is punching a punching bag and he has this this picture drawn of Angel with like the little X's for eyes.
With the fangs had me dying.
And the hair sticking straight up. It was perfect.
The hair is the best part for
so
sure.
Funny.
Fun fact, Joss Whedon actually drew that randomly and decided to insert it into the episode, which is just hilarious. So Spike's like, so wears tall, dark, and forehead. Buffy says, let me guess, you can smell him. Spike's like, yeah. And I also use my heightened vampire eyeballs to watch you kissing him. And then Buffy goes, it was a hello. I was surprised. And Spike goes, most people don't use their tongues to say hello.
And she's not supposed to like kiss her husband? I don't understand why he's so mad. They're literally married.
The show just like, and guys, this is why I go so hard for Buffy and Angel, is because it's so obvious what Buffy wants. It's just so obvious. Mm-hmm. And she says there was no tongue besides he's gone. And she's like, sick of the jealousy. He's like, he wears lips. She says, one of these days I'm going to put you two in a room and let you wrestle it out. Spike's like, no problem at this end. She's like, there could be some oil of some kind. And then Spike's like, gimme. Where's the trinket? Let me have the necklace. He's like, the one with the power. I believe it's mine now. And he says, someone with a soul, but more than human. Angel meant to wear it. That means I'm the qualified party. And then Buffy says it's volatile. We don't know. And he goes, you need someone strong enough to bear it. Then you were planning on giving it to Andrew. And she says, Angel said this amulet is meant to be worn by a champion. And the script says a beat as he deflates. Then Buffy holds it out to him and he understands her meaning. Slowly he takes it. He says, been called a lot of things in my time. I love this shot where she hands the amulet over and you have the music and it's beautifully shot, but also just you feel the weight of it. You see how meaningful this is for Spike. Like all season long, Buffy has believed in him and he hasn't quite believed in himself. And so this feels like a big moment for him.
Yeah. I was about to say, I was like, even though she's handing it to him saying like, you are a champion, he's ultimately believing it and knowing it. So when he grabs the necklace, he's taking on that responsibility and finally being the person that he has wanted to be this entire season. Mm-hmm. He has the strength too. And I love that.
Yeah. Not to undercut it, but there's a quote by James Marsters where he says, the finale was fun, but it wasn't cool. Spike has no idea that he was going to be the big hero. He just wanted a freaking necklace. He just didn't want Angel to have that necklace, and he was just proud that he got it and not Angel. It was just very petty on his part, and the thing starts glowing, and he lights on fire, and he's like, what? Oh no. I played it as it wasn't a big heroic act. It was a wonderful scene, though, between Buffy and Spike. He could proclaim his love before he was gone, but I don't think of him as the heroic savior in that. I think of him as the guinea pig hero.
When I don't read the script, I think that's, I don't know. Okay. All right.
And I do think James Marsters is speaking out of foreknowledge. Like, this is obviously after Angel season 5. This would have, like, a
Sure.
lot
So
of
it
the
feels a
stuff that
little
happens
bit
between
redundant.
Angel and Spike is because Spike is trying
Right.
to undercut Angel and stuff. I don't get that in this scene, and you guys know me, I'm the first one to be
Yeah.
like, oh yes, but I really do think Spike is like,
Agreed.
hey, I want to prove myself, you know? So then Buffy talks about how Faith's still in her room. Spike tries to play it off like, oh, you can't stay here. I'm not going to be whacked back and forth. I've still got my dignity. She starts to go and he like runs around and is like, clearly you don't understand, since that whole having my pride thing was a smokescreen. He says, I don't know what I would have done if you'd gone up those stairs, and she touches his face. And then we cut to later. Buffy is wrapped in Spike's arms facing away from him. The script says they both wear enough to indicate that they did not get sweaty. Spike is sleeping, but Buffy cannot. And so after a moment, she gets up and she goes and like paces around. And then Caleb emerges from the darkness. And they talk about how Buffy killed the first, and how the first is like terrible loss. This was my right arm, but I don't need him. I don't need an arm. I've got an army. I love that. She says, yeah, an army of vampires. However, will I fight a bunch of, and then Caleb says, every day our numbers swell, but then you do have an army of your own. Some 30 odd pimply faced girls don't know the pointy end of a stake. Maybe I should call this off. Buffy says, have you ever considered a cool name? Since you're incorporeal and basically powerless, you could call yourself the Taunter. And then Caleb just gets really serious. I will overrun this earth. He says, when my army outnumbers the humans on this earth, the scales will tip and I will be made flesh. And then she says, I'm not afraid of you. He says, then why aren't you asleep in your dead lover's arms? He says, because he can't help you, not Faith, not your friends. None of these girls will ever really know real power unless you're dead. You know the drill. And then he morphs into Buffy herself and says, into every generation, a Slayer is born. And I love this part. He says, one girl in all the world, she alone will have the strength and skill to fight. Well, there's that word again. What you are, how you'll die. Alone.
I love when I'm watching a movie or show and they have this conversation that we think it's going one direction and then it reframes it for later. They do this so well here because it's not like they're saying something slightly different where you're sitting here going like, "Oh my word, like I see where this is going."
Yeah.
He's just or I guess she, the first is repeating what we've heard this entire time, which is the thesis of the show. And then we're going to flip it and we're going to break it down and rebuild what a Slayer means.
Yes.
And
And
so,
that's what this whole episode is
yes.
about.
And so when she sits here at the very end, after he says the exact same thing of what we know what a Slayer is, he's not giving us any information. And I'm really good with watching. I've seen a lot of television and movies. And so I'm pretty good at kind of guessing where we're going to go most of the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not like superhuman. I can't like see everything, but like sometimes like you kind of see the patterns over
Yeah, we have
some
good
time.
pattern recognition.
But when you're watching this, there's no moment of it being like, oh, they're going to like change what a Slayer is. Do you know what I mean? We're going to have everyone, like I didn't think that. So when she's sitting there and has this moment of realization and she doesn't say like, oh, I got it, I got a plan. She just says, we're going to win, which again is another way of not cluing us in. And then, I mean, later when we have like the first half of the speech and then later when the second half comes in, as everyone gets powerful, chills. It's very well done the way they kind of hide what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. At the expense of a lot of things, but I mean, it's a great reveal. So I can't be too mad at it, but yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I love, this is also the first time that Buffy's met the first. So that makes it even more powerful.
True. And it's her.
This moment where, Buffy meeting the first for the first time and it morphing into her as her mirror, as kind of like the thing that she truly has to face. So Markfield talks about how whenever we've seen the first appear as Buffy, it's always portrayed as arrogant and obsessed with power, kind of as the side of Buffy that she's constantly having to fight as the person with all the power, like that side of herself that she hates and that she's really been like trying to push down this entire series, the Slayer side of her. So the whole season, the first has been trying to separate Buffy from her friends and has been trying to draw some of them to its side. Spike, for instance, as well as Willow and a little bit Anya. This idea of being connected to a great evil that Holden was talking about. And then on the other side, the balance to evil. And the first is a connection to Buffy or good. And we've talked about how Buffy's been undermining the first all season by slowly recruiting these people instead of just killing them. And in doing so, she's been empowering them as weapons in her army. And she's also been balancing things out the entire time, good with evil. And this reflects her entire life struggle with balance between her humanity and her Slayer powers. So like Tabby said, I just love the subtle hints that they're giving us this entire time of the end, because ultimately, metaphorically, Buffy is at war with herself and has been this entire series. So there's a quote from Joss. He says, "The misogyny that is in every culture is not a true part of the human condition. It is a life out of balance, and that imbalance is sucking something out of the soul of every man and woman who's confronted with it."
It's just so funny hearing Joss talk about misogyny.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
The call is coming from inside the house, babe.
Yep.
So then Spike wakes up suddenly. He's like, "I'm drowning in footwear." He's like, "Weird dream."
That was a weird dream. The way he just sits there, that was a weird dream. He's like instantly embarrassed.
Immediately realizes.
And then he's like, "Is something wrong?" And Buffy says, "No, yes, I just realized something that really never occurred to me before. We're going to win." I love the no, yes, because she's like, "No, nothing's wrong because I figured out the secret to winning." But then yes, because everything is wrong. The system itself is wrong and I need to change that. So then we cut back to Buffy's bedroom and she's standing there. I love this shot. I've been like starving for good artistic shots. We start off like in the mirror. We don't even realize it's the mirror, looking at the Scoobies and Dawn and Anya. And then it pans out and we realize we've just been looking at a reflection. And then you see the Scoobies responding to Buffy through the mirror while it's just Buffy and Faith standing there, the two Slayers, and that separation between the two of them. It's visually stunning, but I also love the concept of how Buffy's friends, the people she's drawn strength from, being behind her as she stands there carrying the symbol for power next to her equal, and how that like is reflected. They intentionally had Faith's tank top match the scythe to remind us that Faith is also a Slayer.
I was about to say, I feel like obviously this episode, there's so many things that are really great about it, but in this rewatch, I really noticed and really, really, really just appreciated that I never gave a lot of attention to the other rewatches, how much they've included Faith in this finale.
I love it.
As the Slayer.
Love it.
As well. And I was like, wow, like I just never, and like that's little spoilers for myself. But like when I teared up in this episode, it's when she hands her the scythe. And I was like, oh my word, the Slayers. Like I just had this moment of like, oh my gosh, like they're like working together and this like genuine concern on Faith's faith. Like, and then also again, when this is the part that surprised me, is when each of the girls are tossing the scythe between each other when they're all the Slayers. I was like, oh, like I don't know, I just had this like realization. I was like,
the shared
oh my gosh,
power.
Like girl power,
Yeah.
like,
yeah.
And it's like true form,
Totally.
But like, I don't know, just Faith this episode was given these flowers in a non-cringe way, in a very natural way, in a way that's just like, you're the Slayer as well. Like, you got to pick it up and you got to do it. And like, she just did it naturally. And even in this conversation, she's like talking with Buffy about the plan and being like, this is really good. And they're both standing next to each other. And it's just, I just loved it. I was like, this is how you do it. Rather than being like, these two women are so strong and they're going to work together. It's like, they're just working together because they're both the Slayer and it's just natural. And I love that about Faith this episode.
That's a really good point, Tabby. And not to be a freaking Debbie Downer poo-poo, this is one of the only negative things. No, it's not about you. This is one of the only negative things I'm going to say in this episode because I don't want to be like, besides Kennedy, I'm coming for you. Kennedy and freaking Wood. You two are my ops this episode. You get all my negative energy. But besides that, this scene is beautiful. I love this scene with Buffy and her friends and all that. I will say, nothing makes me more frustrated that you have this really beautiful moment between Buffy and her friends, specifically between Buffy and Giles, where Giles like says like, oh, I don't know if you want my opinion. She said, I really do. And it's like, where it's like, Grumps,
we got a second
Grumps.
of it.
Like, please.
That moment,
if they
Leah,
had just
is supposed to
taken
show us that they're good now. That's their
I
moment.
know, and that's what makes me frustrated is that if they had just taken out a scene, just one scene of freaking Kennedy and Willow, or stupid Wood and Faith, just
that we don't need. We don't need.
And just have it be Buffy and Giles and have him be like, I was wrong. Yeah. And I'm so sorry. And I'm so proud of who you like. Please heal my girl's daddy issues from one to another, please. Oh my gosh. Like it made me so upset because we, as the audience, deserved more than that. And it's frustrating because they could have made it work.
That was Giles. That is the most Giles I have seen
this
since,
episode
I think,
felt like Giles.
Yeah, it did.
This episode felt like Giles, and that's what's so frustrating is that if Empty Places hadn't had happened, I would have been fine. I would have been like, oh, very sweet. Like, but because that big thing happened, it was like
lies my parents told me.
Yes, like we needed a conversation between the two. We owed that as an audience. And I don't want to keep beating a dead horse because it's the last episode and I don't want to be
I agree with you.
Nancy, whatever, negative Nancy. But I think that's something that will haunt me forever is just I wish there was just one scene, one conversation where Giles owned that he was wrong and he was proud of her. Like that's it. That's all. It could have been 2 sentences. For real. Like it's really frustrating. But besides that, I do love this scene and I do echo everything you said.
I think when I watched this episode, I am watching it. I was talking to, shout out to Brandon from Revamped. I was talking to him and I said, I think when we watch this episode, I am just hit with the nostalgia for the characters that I've known and loved for seasons. And I don't just think about the things that have happened this season. So it's very like, I agree with you 100%, but I think it heals a little something in me to see him smiling at her, because then I can go, there's the Giles that I know and loved. And it pulls back old memories and I can work with 6 seasons of the Giles that I loved, and it's easier for me to forget about that. And I think this episode does a good job in reminding me of that, but it really we shouldn't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like
and
it should be.
And
more.
It wasn't enough. We needed more.
You can kind of do the mental gymnastics of the idea of like, they'll make their way back together. And I'm sure that at one point, Giles would kind of come to the point of acknowledging his faults.
And I think that's what this moment is supposed to be. It's hey, you have a good idea. And I'm putting my stamp of approval on it. Not that she needs that, but it's this idea of like, you're going to uproot everything that I have like lived and worked for, my family's worked for and all that stuff. And the fact that he's like on board with that says a lot about him in that moment. But it was kind of like, why couldn't we have done this like 2-3 episodes ago? All right. So Willow's a little bit hesitant. She's like, hey, like this is beyond anything I've ever done. This has lost control. Buffy's like, I wouldn't ask if I didn't think you could do it. Willow's like, I'm not sure I'm stable enough. Giles is like, you're going to do this, Willow. Get the coven on the line. See how they can help. Dawn figures out what Willow meant by pierced tongue. Buffy and Giles are both like, Dawn should go research right now. Dawn says, it's cool. Watch your junior to the library. I love that. So cool.
We love you, Dawn.
So then Giles says he's going to start digging up his sources, literally. Anya says, come on, let's go assemble the cannon fodder. Just like great line after great line that just really encapsulates each of these characters. And it's wonderful. So then Buffy hands the scythe to Willow. And then we hear,
I hate this. I hate being here. I hate that you have to be here. I hate that there's evil, that I was chosen to fight it. I wish a whole lot of the time that I hadn't been. I know a lot of you wish I hadn't been either. This isn't about wishes. This is about choices. I believe we can beat this evil. Not when it comes, not when its army is ready. Now. Tomorrow morning, I'm opening the seal. I'm going down into the Hellmouth and I'm finishing this once and for all. Right now, you're asking yourself what makes this different. What makes us anything more than a bunch of girls being picked off one by one? It's true. None of you have the power that Faith and I do. So here's the part where you make a choice.
And then we cut to Faith and Wood. Oh, you're right, Leah. This is still like such a pointless scene, such a pointless scene. But they're doing it because they want Faith to talk to someone, not Buffy.
Both these scenes back to back, like the one with Willow and Kennedy, and the one with Wood and Faith, made me just legitimately upset because I was like, this is the last episode. Why are we spending time trying to develop these characters
Yeah.
when you should be helping solidify the original characters?
So they're, talking about how they got sweaty together, and Faith basically says that when she gets bouncy with a guy, there's not much more that she needs to know about him. Wood's like, oh, that's bleak. Faith says, way of the world. Wood says, good to know. For a second there, I was mistaking it for more defensive, isolationist Slayer crap.
Why does Sarah, you ruined him for me.
Well, it's because he knows Slayer's guys. He knows how Slayer works.
Like, I never was like a huge
I
fan
ruined
of
him for myself, dude.
But he
I'm
is
never
like
looking at him the
nasty
same
to me now. Like every time he talks, I'm like, shut up, dude. And then
I used to like him too. It's a bummer.
I'm prettier than you. Girl, no, you're not. Let's be so for real. That's Elijah Dushku you're talking to right now. You're wrong. Not just that, but also when he was like, it wasn't that good. We all know that's a lie. And then Faith being like, okay, we'll go right now. I'm like, Faith is so mean. Like, Faith is so mean. The way she's just like, okay, prove it. Okay? Like, she's like taking off her pants.
I think he did that to kind of like humble her. I think he was doing that to kind of like do this whole little like power play thing.
And he was trying to act like he didn't have his feelings hurt, and it didn't rock his world, and that she's ugly. He's doing what every other man does when he gets his feelings hurt. That's literally what he's doing. He's trying to bring her down a few pegs because he feels like she brought him down a few pegs. But the difference is she's hot. So it doesn't work.
I think he's hot too, but I think that it was kind of ruined after.
He is. He just gives me such an ick because of his character.
Let's be
DB
like,
Woodside is very hot.
He is attractive.
Yeah. He is. And the thing is, I thought he was so attractive until this rewatch, and now I literally get the ick from him. Like, I can't do it.
I agree with you in the sense of how it comes off, Leah, but I think the intention of the writers is to basically do the exact same thing that they've been accusing Buffy of this entire season of, oh, she isolates herself, she pushes everyone away. Oh, look, Faith does the same thing because that's just what Slayers do. Yeah, again, they're sacrificing characterization for the sake of getting to the ultimate plot, for the sake of the metaphor and stuff. And it's frustrating. What's like, Faith, make me a deal. We live through this. You give me the chance to surprise you. Basically, like, I'm going to teach you what true intimacy is. Blech. Anyway. And then Willow's bedroom. Willow has a scythe on her bed along with a bunch of books and papers. She's, trying to figure stuff out. She says, I really wish she hadn't said that about me. Kennedy's like, what? The thing Buffy said? I think it's true. She says, I'll be with you to keep you grounded. Willow says, you may have to keep me stabbed if I go to the bad place. Kennedy says, you're saying I might have to kill you. Willow says, I am. And then she says, I mean it. And then she says, the darkest place I've ever been. This is what lies beyond that. This is too important for me to. And then Kennedy says, Buffy believes in you. Willow, Buffy, sweet girl, not that bright. Kennedy says, hey, I'm the first to call her out when she's not making sense. In fact, this may have escaped your keen notice, but I'm kind of a brat. I've sort of always gotten my way. So you're going to make it through this no matter how dark it gets because now you're my way. So they go back to it. Then I love this scene. We have everybody. Well, not everybody. We have Giles, Xander, Amanda, and then Anya's asleep at the table. They're playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's just so funny. Giles is like trying to figure stuff out.
Good.
It was so
and then
good.
Giles being like, I used to be a watcher and now I'm a first level gnome or whatever the freak he said. Like, it was so funny.
What was it with the hit points of a doily or something, a mystical doily or whatever it was? My favorite part was he goes, what about my bag of illusions? And Andrew's like, illusions against a burninator? Silly, silly British man. And then Amanda's like, what kind of person could sleep on a night like this? And then we see Anya just snoozing, and Xander rubs her head and says, only the crazy ones. That's so sweet. All right, this made me tear up. there was a cut scene. So while Buffy is standing on the front porch, just kind of looking out, and we have the music playing, we have this scene in Dawn's bedroom. There's a bunch of potentials in the room, some with sleeping bags, some just hanging out, all more or less sitting at the feet of Dawn, who sits on her bed mid-tail. She says, and the master grabbed Buffy from behind and bit her. She tried to move, but he was too strong. He fed on her blood, and he tossed her in the water, cackling insanely as the bubbles rose around her, and she slowly drowned to death. And Vi gets upset and goes, do you have any other stories? And Dawn goes, she gets up again. It's very romantic. Guys, you got to stop worrying. It's Buffy. She always saves the day.
Oh, why didn't we have that? I'm actually so pissed off.
Right?
And we got Kennedy just yapping about being a brat. Like, what the frick, you guys? It's actually gonna make me crash out.
I know.
Because like we need like the potentials to like know how cool Buffy is. And also like it really builds up, I don't know, our momentum towards the end and hope. And then also reminding us that like Buffy's gone through this, you know? Also, like, I understand we don't have a lot of time, and I'm able to forgive that.
But Dawn didn't
But I
have
would have
anything.
I was about to say, but like, I've been sorely missing Dawn this season. Like, the first half, we got a lot of her, and then the second half, we've gotten like little to nothing. And then she's just thrown in to say like the most hurtful thing ever in Empty Places, which is just so out of character. And so I'm just like needing a moment between the two. And like, yeah, they had a sweet moment earlier, and it's like also very siblings and funny and everything. And then we have like a small moment at the end of the episode. And I do appreciate, and I actually noticed this rewatch, like her anxiously the entire time, like waiting, knowing Buffy's gonna make it out.
No,
like,
don't talk about
she's
that.
the only one.
No, I broke down. That's the moment.
Yeah,
I can't talk
so
about that.
sweet.
No.
Sorry.
No.
My
I'm gonna
bad.
start crying.
No, but
I can't.
No, but like I just like I desperately in this episode, and I know that they threw some small stuff in there because I didn't have a lot of time. But that would have been so sweet to, like, as a younger sibling, be, like, talking about her older sister in that sort of way.
And she's
with
trying
this
to encourage
admiration.
the potentials. She's using her, like, watcher role to tell stories of her sister.
I was about to say it's key that she's using a story of when Buffy was the same age as most of the potentials too.
Yeah.
Like she literally died when she was 16.
Right. Well, there's a parallel of entering down into the Hellmouth. It's the same as
Yeah.
Buffy going towards the Master, which I'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, I teared up because I read that in the script as I was going through the episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would have bawled my eyes out if that was right here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I think we were just missing these moments of having like 1 or 2 minutes of conversation between some key people, even if
Yeah.
it's not with each other. Like this moment, none of the main core group is in there.
Yeah.
It's just Dawn talking to the potentials, but I think that would have healed a huge part of the connection between Buffy and Dawn.
Yeah.
Because I know that they're good, even though she, like, was the one who
Siblings
pulled
say the
trigger,
worst
like,
things to each other, but then you get right back up.
and like
you
I
know?
never questioned. Like I didn't need a whole conversation where like Dawn apologized. Would I have appreciated? Yes, of course. But like I know they're good. They'll be fine. I know Dawn loves Buffy.
Yeah.
Dawn is also. We need to remember too. Of everyone in that room, Dawn is also still a child,
Yeah.
and she's looking at all the adults making a similar decision.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't agree, and I think it is still very out of character, especially with where they're at in season 7. They've been good this entire time. But I would have really loved to have seen that scene.
Yeah.
Or even just like a small moment where if like Buffy's on the front porch kind of like thinking about what's going to happen the next day, we could have 3 seconds of Dawn also awake watching Buffy on the front porch, knowing that she's like anxiously thinking about tomorrow. Like there doesn't have to be anything said. It's just this understanding that Buffy has this like weight on her shoulders, which would be actually really beautiful because it's the last time Buffy has to go through that alone.
Mm-hmm.
And Dawn realizing that. Man.
Yeah.
Put me in the writer's room, you guys.
Well-
because again, like that takes like 3 seconds to do. We don't need like 7 minutes. I'm about to crush out.
It needed to be a 2-hour finale, really, truly. But
I was
yeah.
really fine with this finale until you freaking brought up that cutscene. Now I'm
Not
pissed
me
off.
ruining everybody's rewatch. I'm so sorry. Yeah. And then this moment with Buffy standing at the front porch, the script says, worried is Helen very much alone. After a long while, she takes the lantern and heads inside. I don't get that vibe from what her standing on the porch, but I do get, this is where I start to choke up again because it's the last time we see the Summers house and it just feels just so nostalgic. All right, but then we jump to the basement. Spike sits up and he and Buffy contemplate each other, and then we kind of fade to black. This is left purposely ambiguous. It's left up to the viewer whether you think that they slept together or not. Joss purposely left it that way. In his mind, he believes that they did sleep together, but it just is very interesting to me that this entire season, Buffy and Spike didn't even so much as kiss. And I find that very interesting. And I think that was an intentional choice because of what happened in Seeing Red.
And I clap and cheer. Honestly, good for them. But also, like, even if they did sleep together, like, they're gonna die tomorrow, okay?
All right, so then now we're at Sunnydale High School. We get zoom ins on like everything is just a wreck. And then all of a sudden we're at Wood as he leads the group and including Buffy talking about welcome to Sunnydale High, no running in the halls, blah, blah, blah. Buffy's like potentials.
You're so funny, Wood.
It's so funny. I didn't think we were all going to hate Wood. I thought, oh, he'll be a breath of fresh air. And there was a turn halfway through the season where I was like,
No, he was
It's the
off from
mommy
day
issues.
one. No, he just is unnecessary. Why does he take up so much screen time? Like, for real, him and Kennedy, like, get out of my face. Oh my gosh. And he's weird.
And on top of that, he has mommy issues.
Yeah. All right, so Buffy's like potentials are in the basement, follow Faith and Spike. And then Xander says, if you have to go to the bathroom, it's on the left. If you don't have to go to the bathroom, picture what you're about to face. Better to go now. Wood says, Willow, my office is through there. And then Buffy says it's right over the seal. So Kennedy takes Willow's bag and says, I'll start to get you set up. Wood says, okay, civilians, the vampires get upstairs. We have 3 areas. He says they could get through to another building and down into the sewers. And so he shows that down the hall's the atrium, the North Hall, and then the primary target through the lounge to the science building. He says that most of them will find their way there. And so Giles is like, all right, you and I should go there. Buffy says, Xander, I want you with Dawn. And then Dawn's like, we'll take the atrium. And then Anya's like, so that leaves me and the dungeon master in the North Hall. And Andrew says, we will defend it with our very lives. And Anya says, yes, we will defend it with his very life.
And I love that he like gears up for this whole speech, and I'm like clocked in.
I was like, "Whoa, what's he gonna say?"
Andrew?
Yeah,
like,
me being like, "Shut up, Kennedy and Wood." I want to hear what Andrew has to say.
No, for real. I was like, "Okay, Andrew." Looking like he's gonna give this whole speech, and he's like, "And my brother Tucker." And I'm like, I mentioned him one last time. The turnaround I have with this character really surprised me. I was really willing to go and be like, yeah, he's a little funny, like, but he still pisses me off. But he was like a very welcome, humor element that we needed this season. But also, like, he did the work to kind of do some inner reflection and some growth. And yet was still funny, and I appreciate that. But I just was cracked me up. He was like gearing himself up to have this whole like speech, and then she's like, "Okay, buddy, you're done."
I never got around to talking about this, so I'll just say it real fast. But there are a couple quotes in Evan Ross Katz's book where he's talking to Tom Lank, who plays Andrew, where Tom Lank says that he sensed a little bit of animosity and jealousy from Nicholas Brendan because a lot of the really funny lines were given to Tom Lank. And because of it, Xander's role, or maybe not because of it, but Xander's role this season, the comedic element was brought down quite a lot. And I think that, or Tom Lank thinks that Nicholas Brendan was a little bit resentful of that. And then there's a lot of quotes about Nicholas Brendan talking about how he hated all the extra people that came in season 7 because he wanted it just to be the core group. But yeah, it's very interesting. But anyway, all that to say, this is a great moment. It's hilarious. I love how Xander asks or says, don't be afraid to use him as a human shield. And so then Anya drags Andrew off. Wood goes off into his corner. Dawn goes, I'm going to go check out our field of engagement. She starts down the hall and Buffy goes after her. And Dawn says, no. She says, anything you say is going to sound like goodbye. And then she turns and goes.
I'm fine with the whole, like, anything you say is going to sound like goodbye. And there doesn't have to be this whole huge speech between them. But I wish there was, like, this, like, lingering moment of, like, I don't know, some sort of, like, emotion between the two. And I understand it's war and I get that. I'm just saying, like, if it were up to me, I would have added like 10 more seconds of like just saying it a little bit slower. I feel like it was just really quick, and then she just was walking away, and I was like, oh, I just wish we had a little bit more time here where they could just kind of look at each other, and then Buffy kind of having to like let her go, and then letting her choose to fight in this battle, because that's like a huge contrast to 2 seasons ago, or even last season. But that's me if I have to be nitpicky. I just feel like it was just too quick. And I don't mind like that whole like we're not gonna say goodbye to each other. I get that. This is war, like you just kind of have to keep going. You don't want to break down. But I wish that we had given a few seconds for it to kind of like sink in, and they looked at each other, and then she walked away and Buffy was like, okay, I have to like let her fight, you know? But
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it. I think it's more of let's think about the interactions that Buffy and Dawn have had since the whole thing happened in Empty Places. There's literally been what, 3, 4,
yeah.
and it's been with a group of other people aside from the moment where Dawn kicked Buffy.
I know,
So
this is what I mean. Like,
yeah,
I've
I
been
feel
missing
like
Dawn.
the difference with Buffy and Dawn is they're sisters. And so
They're gonna be
them
good.
doing things that are kind of like insane, it's like, okay, I'm sure you guys will work it out because
if
usually
Leah kicked me, that would
siblings
be
do.
I love you, so I would get it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So like honestly for them, I don't need this big speech, truthfully.
yeah, they're always going to
Now with
be
her
for
and
each other.
Giles,
Yeah,
that's different. Her and
right.
her 2 best friends, that's different.
Yeah, yeah.
Xander, I'm okay with.
Xander and her
Willow,
seem to be in a good
like,
place. Her and Willow is a little shaky, but yeah.
it's one of those things where I'm like, are you good? Like, you and Willow? I don't know. Willow just has seemed very avoidant since Empty
Mhm.
Places. That's
Yeah.
kind of how I've felt her
Mhm.
presence being. Like, she's just kind of not addressing Buffy because she's preoccupied with Kennedy, and then just kind of doing. And then Buffy's kind of noticing that, and then Loki a little bit okay with that, which is a bummer. It's a bummer.
So Buffy turns back and there's a moment and all of them look at each other and we realize it's the original 4. The camera slowly circles around them as they realize it too, look at each other with unspoken feelings. Then Buffy goes, so what do you guys want to do tomorrow? Willow says nothing strenuous. Xander says mini golf is always the first thing that comes to mind. And then Giles is like, well, I think we can do better than
Ted.
that. Ted, yes. But this is a huge callback to the end of The Harvest.
The Harvest.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's also mini golf was the first thing that Xander suggested after they destroyed the master and when she was bad, when they were all back to normal and stuff. And, the earth is definitely doomed and going to the mall and all of that stuff. Like, this is just a very clear callback. And I think this moment works because you can tell it's not like they're doing this seriously. They're all doing it like tongue in cheek kind of thing. Like, oh, this is what we do all the time. And it works and it's very nostalgic. And I don't know. I start to get teary eyed here. And I could not find anywhere that I read this, but I read this a long time ago. And I don't know if this is true or not. And I tried looking it up, but I heard somewhere along the line that Joss originally wanted to do a montage here as Buffy was walking down the hallway with Xander and Willow, whereas it's as she goes to leave Giles, we get a montage of like all these touching Giles moments throughout the series. And then as she leaves Giles, then we get montage of all the Willow moments. And then as she leaves, it's Xander. And then as she walks alone, it's like a montage of her.
That would have raised the stakes too, because you're thinking, oh, one of them's gonna die.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I always felt like this is where it starts to feel kind of rushed. I always feel like this is
Yeah.
where we needed to have things slow down a little bit. I
Agreed.
really wanted more with them. Like, come on, this is the Scooby
Yep.
Gang, but it is what it is. So then finally, everyone takes off and leaves until it's Buffy alone. It's interesting. The core 4 splits up in the exact reverse order that they met Buffy in Welcome to the Hellmouth. So she met Xander first. They're the last apart, then Willow, then Giles. And then it's just her all by herself, except this time she's not alone. She heads down to where we have Faith and all the potentials and Spike waiting for her. And again, like I talked about earlier, this moment right here parallels Buffy going down to fight the Master in the Hellmouth. And I love that the potentials at this point don't fully know if the spell is going to work, but are choosing to take up their weapons and fight against evil, whether the odds are stacked against them or not. Because that's what a Slayer does. Like, it means, like, that is what choice is, right? Thematically, we've seen this all season where Buffy has urged people to use the power that they have to get up and to fight, not just be stuck in fear and indecision. Like her handing the weapons to Anya in same time, same place, her urging Spike to get out of the basement, her chastisement of Willow and Spike and everyone else and get it done, and even her speech in Bring on the Night. It's about moving forward in life, confronting your fears, overcoming them, and empowering others to do so as well. And that's what she ultimately did in confronting the Master. She was confronting her fear, and that's what the Potentials are doing here. So then they all pass around this knife and slice their hands and then hold their hands over the seal, and it unlocks because with their powers combined, you guys, this is one of those moments I have to suspend my movie because I'm like, you're really telling me that all these people, just a little bit of blood is more than what Jonathan had.
I will say too, it's also kind of like, why did they wait to have the Slayer power spread through like everyone while they're there instead of being like, hey, let's take the extra hour at the house and make sure that we all kind of get this through us first. Like, I know it's,
Right.
it's for epicness, but still, you would think,
I think it's also to not alert the first to what they're doing, but that argument also breaks down because it's kind of like the first is in everyone, so it's supposed to know all your plans, also could be in the same room. But I think the idea is that they're trying to surprise the first. They want to take it to the Hellmouth because they can contain the vampires a little bit more. So that's my guess, but yeah, that is an excellent point. So Willow's sitting on the floor in Principal Wood's office. The scythe is in front of her. She's got all her mystical objects arranged. Kennedy's watching her. Willow's like, all right, everything's in place. You ready to kill me? And then Kennedy says, come on, Red, make it happen. She's like, I want to be a Slayer, Willow, come on. So then back in the caverns, Buffy and Faith have climbed down. Spike's like, hey, my fabulous accessory isn't exactly tingling with power. Buffy's like, I'm not worried. He's like, I'm getting zero juice here and I look like Elizabeth Taylor. And Faith's like, cheer up, Liz. Willow's big spell doesn't work. Won't matter what you wear. Then Buffy looks straight down and they all see, now we have a precipice and there's an endless cavern swarming with thousands of uber vamps. I was like, oh, it's the orcs. And she's like, I'm
For
not
real.
worried. And then they all just like sit there and I'm like, bruh, okay, this is when you sit very quietly. You just sit down. You don't even edge to the end of the precipice and you just wait for the juice to hit you.
This is just such movie TV behavior because I would peek over and go, oh, and then back up.
Yeah, literally.
And then be like using sign language.
Yes, exactly. But the fact that they're like talking at full volume, like how in the world do you think that they're uber vamps?
It's like when you're sneaking around in like some horror movie and then you're whispering to the person next to you and you're like, okay, so tomorrow we're gonna go and do, and you're like, okay, all right, that's like not even whispering.
Sometimes whispering
and in
is
the same
louder
room.
than talking at full volume, okay? Yeah. And then we have Willow mumbling something under her breath. And then, Buffy and Faith, the script says, starting to think about retreat as all of the uber vamps see them and start advancing. And then suddenly in Principal Wood's office, Willow tenses up, her eyes go wide. We hear, oh my goddess. And then we flash back now to the second half of Buffy's speech to the Potentials as Buffy says, so here's the part where you make a choice. And we get a series of images intercut through the living room as we see girl after girl after girl from all around the world, all walks of life, all races. And it's amazing. It's powerful. Buffy says, what if you could have that power now? In every generation, one Slayer is born because a bunch of guys that died thousands of years ago made up that rule. They were powerful men, she points to Willow. This woman is more powerful than all of them combined. So I say we change the rules. I say my power should be our power. From now on, every girl in the world who might be a Slayer will be a Slayer. Every girl who could have the power will have the power. Who can stand up will stand up. Slayers, every one of us, make your choice. Are you ready to be strong? Ooh,
Every
dare
time
I
get
her
chills.
Finest speech. It's masterful.
And again,
Incredible.
like I know we keep talking about it, but just like if the show's gonna end in a way that's not The Gift, I could not have chosen a better way to end it.
Yeah.
Not just so that we can have like the protagonist finally have a happy ending, because it's so many times that you watch a show and then it wraps up in a way that's like too perfect.
Right.
And
It's not
everyone
believable.
Yeah, it's like everyone ends up with the ship that everyone wanted, and the show ends with everyone being besties, and they're all living in houses right next to each other, and it's just it feels cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I think Leah said in the beginning of this podcast, Buffy having a happy ending is not only earned, but we never expect it because Buffy never gets a break. The entire 7 seasons, Buffy is constantly being punished for her friends' issues, for her issues, for other people projecting their issues on her, for everything. It's like the girl cannot catch a break. So when she finally is able to kind of lift that burden and all of the girls kind of consent and choose to be slayers, and it's less of a burden if you can work together, which is the whole point. So Buffy has been alone in this. So when we have all of these girls getting to be the Slayer now, it's going to look different. They're not all going to. This is why it's empowering. I'm not sitting here being like, oh, it's bittersweet because now all these girls have to like be Buffys, you know what I mean? And have to
Yeah,
like,
they can be
you
their
know, like
own
isolate
version of a
themselves.
Slayer.
But they can also they can share it now. It's not the
Yes.
same burden that
Yep.
Buffy has had to go through.
Yep.
It's different. It's like when you don't open up about something and then you finally do thinking no one's going to understand and you're like, girl, I've gone through something very similar, and you're like, oh, I thought I was alone in that. It's like it's very similar. So you can kind of
Yeah.
have somebody to kind of experience something similar with you, and you can work through it. It's metaphorical for just
Mhm.
womanhood. It's like we have a unique experience on this earth as women, and we don't have to be threatened by each other, and we
Mhm.
can see each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we can work through it together. And I think it gets complicated because of patriarchy. I really do think that. Like,
Mhm.
I think that's what the show is trying to do here.
Yeah.
And that's what makes art good, is when you can look at this and then take it and then see real life experiences with it. And it's very beautiful. And I felt like it hit its marks and snaps for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this separation that the Slayer has felt from the rest of the world since the Slayer line existed is why Buffy's clung so hard to
Yeah.
her friends and family all series long. And it's now she's literally creating new Slayers, but not just that, she's creating a system that is built in that helps support
True.
them.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Yeah.
isn't just her going, choose power, guys. All right, it's going to be
Yeah.
a really sucky life. It's like, hey, you guys all have each other. We saw that in
Mhm.
Potential. The girls were all bonding on the fact that they all got to slay the vampires. They already have a system built in. And
Yeah.
so there's something really beautiful about that. Versus Buffy and Faith, I think, have to work a little bit harder because they were raised in a system where they were supposed to be alone. And yeah, it's just going to be great. And I think it's also so meta because the show is literally also casting off the system that it created. And I think that's why we
Mhm.
as the viewer don't see it coming. Because just like
Yeah, you
Buffy
don't think that's
and
what's gonna
every other
happen.
character,
Yeah.
we assume that because this is the way it's always been done, that that's the way things must continue to be. And that's how we see the premise
Mhm.
of the show as well, which just makes it really brilliant.
But again, also in real life too, this is why it's important to then fight against the system of patriarchy as well. Is because
Right.
it's like if I keep thinking like, okay, well, this is how the system is set up, and like I can't do anything about it. It's like we all have that mindset, nothing's going to get changed,
Right.
and so we can work through it by being together. That's the first step.
Right.
So
Well, and I think there's also something even going further beyond that too. We can look at this even beyond just a feminist perspective
yeah.
and even say we can empower each other no matter what race, no matter what sex, no matter which class
Mhm.
divisions, all that stuff. Like there's an empowering message here that works beyond even the feminist, which I think obviously that's a huge umbrella, but there's even like subcategories that this works as well. Mark Field has a great quote. He talks about how empowerment is the solution to Buffy's challenges. He says, empowerment of others is the ultimate boon. The answer to the question Buffy asks Giles in Grave when she asks why she's back. All during season 7, she struggled with the sense of isolation implied in her question and inherent in the calling of the Slayer. She first tried to overcome her isolation by withdrawing even more into her special cocoon, but that just isolated her all the more. Only here in Chosen does she meet her challenge, and it's not by making herself special, it's by making everyone her equal. She understood finally what Joss said in his speech for Road to Equality in 2006, that recognizing somebody else's power does not diminish your own. And I really, really love that. And also just kudos to Sarah Michelle Gellar. According to Joss in the DVD commentary, Buffy's monologue in the house, it was so long he had to cut a lot in editing, but he said that Sarah Michelle Gellar did the original monologue in one go several times, to the point that some crew members were applauding spontaneously because of how she was nailing it every time.
Wow.
Oh man, great moment, great speech. We get tons of other just like great moments. This was in the script. Faith looks at Buffy and they beam at each other, and Faith says, "You feel that?" And Buffy says, "I really do."
Stop, I could cry.
That's so
I love their
sweet.
scenes together. It's so good.
Oh, I love that they're just like so happy for them. And then we see Vi say these guys are dust. The first wave hits, the vamps crest the edge and mass swarming over to the girls. And then they just take on beating them back. And it looks like, they're doing really great. Kennedy is like super giddy. And then she looks over at Willow. And we see that Willow is bathed in pure white wind. Her hair is actually white, streaming out behind her. Her smile a bowl to catch her tears. A moment of transcendence. Then it ends, the wind sucking out of her, and her appearance returns to normal. She is clearly completely spent. Kennedy says, "You are a goddess." And Willow says, "And you're a slayer." And she tosses Kennedy the scythe and says,
I do
"Get
love this
to Buffy."
moment. I may not be the biggest fan of Kennedy, but I did love this moment. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
love that. They're both supporting each other in this moment. She's like, "You're a goddess. Like, love that for you. You did such a good job." And then in turn, Willow's like, "And you're a slayer." Like, they're
Yeah.
both recognizing
The power
each
in
other's
each
like,
other.
yeah,
Yes. And there's
I
a
love that.
connection there too, right? Because
Yes.
Willow tapped into that and gave that gift to Kennedy in a way. And there's a really neat comparison between Willow activating the talisman that holds the slayer power and having her true self be revealed in doing it, and Spike
Totally.
activating the necklace talisman that also reveals his true self and his ability to be a champion. Like, he's able to look inside himself metaphorically and see his soul and his capabilities for the first time. Basically, both of them seeing what Buffy's been seeing this whole time, and get it done. She's like, "You guys are holding back." And look what happens when they don't hold back. So then we have Willow. That was nifty. She just like falls over. Girl is wiped. So in the cavern, Buffy is near the edge fighting. And then we hear Kennedy. She goes, "Buffy, catch." She throws the scythe to Buffy. They were really
The
intentional.
only good thing that Kennedy ever does.
They were very intentional about who they had people throwing the scythe to. So Kennedy throwing it to Buffy was a huge,
It was people that felt earned.
Like, at one point you have Faith passing it to Rona. Then when Buffy stands
Yes.
up, Rona passes it back to Buffy. Like, that was intentional.
Well, and like before well, actually, maybe I shouldn't say that. Well, that's fine. Like, one, I forget her
Tabby's
name.
like, what do I
but
have
like
to lose?
the one that's friends with Rona. No, well, it's I don't know if it's coming. It's not necessarily yet. But like the one who's friends with Rona, she also passes it to her as she's like getting taken down. So I love that it's like the literal passing of the
that
torch,
was
but
Faith.
also sharing
Faith passed
that.
it. That was Faith.
Was that Faith?
Yep, she was being taken out by the vamps, and so she passes it to Rona.
Oh, I thought it was someone else
Nope,
for a
it was
second there.
Faith.
Oh,
Yeah.
never mind. Never mind.
So then Buffy catches it without even looking back, and we get this incredible slow-mo shot as she takes out two vamps immediately. We have Kennedy fighting. She says, "Oh, I could get used to this." I talked about this back in Full for Love, but the stunt woman, Ming Q, I think is her name. She portrays a newly activated Slayer in the final battle. She portrayed Xin Rong, I believe is her name. She was the Chinese Slayer in Fu for Love. And so she's in this scene as well, which I really kind of liked. She's the stunt coordinator for Osaka and did stunts in Mulan. So she's, fantastic. Whedon acknowledges that the magic unleashed from the weapon, the scythe, in this episode is somewhat convenient, but as a writer, it was more important for him to get to the show's message of empowerment by showing what Willow's magic
I kind of get that.
and Buffy's status as the Slayer means to each of them. He also admits that the Turkon in this episode are far easier to kill than previous episodes. He says, because
you know
again,
what?
I was more interested in the showing the empowerment than I was in the continuity.
And you know what?
I kind of get that.
No one cares.
A lot of people actually care. A lot of
Who
people actually
cares? Just enjoy the episode. Like, oh my gosh, we've had 7 seasons of freaking breaking it down. Just enjoy the fact that some of them live.
And here's the thing.
Actually, you guys can care. You can care. I'm just letting you know it's more fun if you don't.
I've really actually never had a huge problem with them killing the Turrican simply because like this whole season's been about balance, right? We learned like in Bring on the Night and Showtime that the Slayer line was weakened by pulling Buffy in and out. And the first took advantage of that and then started killing potentials, and that like weakened the line further. So now the first is disproportionately stronger. The balance is upended. So by enacting the spell that made a bunch of Slayers, I see it as leveling the playing field. So not just on a numbers scale, but also on a power scale.
Yeah. Very well said. I was just going to say it less articulate than that, just by saying like, okay, so they're all Slayers now and they're stronger.
Yeah.
So they're easier.
It's all
also,
mystical.
Like,
it's so easy to poo-poo away.
I was about to say there's a lot of magic within it too, because we've talked a lot in this show about how we view Buffy's physical strength tied to her emotional state. So when all the women are being empowered with each other, but also being physically stronger because they are Slayers, it's a double whammy. So
Right.
they're it's two different things. So they're stronger on multiple levels.
Right.
So it works for me in that sense, but that's how I tend to view strength and magic in the show, and some people don't view it that way, which I can understand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's canonical that Buffy does better when she's connected with the Slayer. She fights great with Kendra. Faith empowers her before she goes to fight the mayor and all that stuff. So I don't think it's implausible to think that all these Slayers together would be empowering because they're connected, right? So, yeah. All right. So then we have everybody fighting, and then we have like a montage of like the civilians now. So Giles and Wood look at each other. They can hear them. Ugh, this part was cut out. I wish they hadn't cut it out. But Giles has a hand-rolled cigarette. He offers it to Wood, who declines, blowing out a little smoke as Giles stamps out the cigarette, and then they hoist their swords. Ugh, that Ripper side. Xander and Dawn also wait. This was cut out. Dawn says, "You were going to take me to Oxnard." Xander says, "I know some people there. You're in my blind spot." Dawn says, "Oh," and then she like switches sides with him. And then we have Andrew and Anya also in wait mode. Andrew says, "I think they're coming." Anya says, "Oh God, I'm terrified. I just figured you would be terrified and I would be sarcastic about it." Andrew, the script says, also shit scared. "Picture happy things, a lake, candy canes, bunnies." And then Anya's eyes narrow and she goes, "Bunnies. Floppy, hoppy bunnies." Her sword comes up, the script says, all her fear is gone. And what a wonderful picture of facing down your fears. If season 6 was all about letting your fears control you, then season 7 was, as Buffy said in Bring on the Night, seeking them out, destroying them. And Anya using bunnies to empower herself to do something that she's afraid of, not only is just a great, fantastic moment to show her working through her fear, but it's also a little nod to Selfless. I talked about this in Selfless. She had a speech to Olaf about how she wanted to use bunnies to help people, and how here she uses bunnies, a thing that represents her fear and her hatred, in order to selflessly put her life at risk for Andrew and for the world. She dies helping others, and in doing so does what she wanted to use bunnies for in the first place. So that line in Selfless, I don't remember if it was cut out or not, but she says to Olaf, "The rapid reproductive rate of our rabbits has given me an idea. I can give the excess out to the townspeople, exchanging them not for goods or services, but for goodwill and the sense of accomplishment that stems from selflessly giving of yourself to others." And so that's what bunnies represented for her at one point in her life. And then she felt taken advantage of by Olaf, and like then travel down the path of vengeance. And so this moment right here is her taking ownership of her power and destiny. Like she's wielding that sword, that symbol of power and responsibility this season, and she's not letting fear define her. And I love this moment for Anya. It's really, really great. And there's not many great Anya moments in the season, so I'm going to take it. So then we see a group of Uber Vamps coming down the hall towards Giles and Wood. They start fighting. A few of them come at Anya, the script says, who's pretty damn good with a sword, and Andrew, who's Jerry Lewis with a sword, but somehow managing to keep them at bay. And then we see a group of 5 bringers appearing in the hall behind them, all armed with knives and swords. In the cavern, Spike is fighting, but then he feels something with his amulet. He's trying to call to her. He's like, whatever this thing does, and then he yells and drops to his knees, stunned by pain. And then this is where Buffy says, keep the line together, drive them to the edge, and then a sword slices through her back and pops out her belly. Everything gets quiet, and then Faith tackles the vampire behind her that's about to finish her off, and Buffy falls to the ground. And let me tell you, I fully was prepared for Buffy to die. I audibly, the first time this happened, I was like, and there it is. Like, she's going to die. She's going to die.
But I feel like this is just such a movie, TV show, I'm gonna survive wound spot.
Oh yeah, it's such a
that
cliche.
it's always the same spot. If you get stabbed in like the right abdomen, you're probably fine. Like in every single
She just
thing I've
lost a
seen, it's
fallopian
like
tube. That's all.
yeah, if somebody gets stabbed there and they die, I'm shocked. Color me shocked. It's like, what do you mean you get stabbed in like the safety zone?
Safety zone.
and then
Just
you,
a kidney.
and then you die? Weak. But like I don't know. But they slow it down and then she collapses. So you really do think like, oh shoot. Like,
Yeah.
and Buffy's never been stabbed like that. I mean, she was shallowly stabbed with a stake in the stomach in Fool for Love.
Yeah.
But that was like maybe an inch.
Yeah, this
of
is all
wood.
the way through.
This is all the way through, you know?
Yeah. Yep. So then Faith makes her way to Buffy, and Buffy says, "Hold the line," and she holds out her sight to
tears.
Faith. The script says, "A moment," and Faith takes it, stabs the guy behind her without looking at him, and then goes ape shit on the fuckers. But this moment, Faith's
Love
face,
it.
she knows
So
what
good.
this means in a way that she
Mhm.
didn't before she took the
And
responsibility.
she's so
She
concerned
finally
and
feels like a real Slayer. Like you
Mhm.
can see it in her eyes where she's like, "Oh, it's not just Buffy anymore."
Mhm.
Like it's just so beautiful.
There's a seriousness there, but also like this
Mhm.
connection between the two of them. And like, I hate empty places, but I am happy that Faith got that time to be the main
yeah,
Slayer
that's the only
because
good thing about it.
this feels
Mhm.
earned right here.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I was gonna say that I think a couple episodes ago and I totally spaced on that, but that's such a good point, Sarah. But obviously I hate empty places. The only thing that came out of it that I do appreciate is the fact that Faith had to go very briefly at being the main Slayer, and like it wasn't her fault that they got ambushed, and she may think it's that way, but I don't ever blame Faith for empty places or for what happens. It's not her fault at all. And so when this moment happens, I mean, it would still be beautiful either way, but it's even more so because she had a taste of being the main Slayer and how hard that is. And
Mhm.
so when she gives it to her, she's like, okay, like I have to do this,
Mhm.
and there's this moment of just like, okay, like this is my role as the Slayer.
Well, and she was always jealous, and she was always
Mhm.
jealous of Buffy, always wanted to take her things and have that role. And then when she got it, she was so loath to step into that. And then she realized what that actually means. And it was nothing like she was expecting it to be. And now this moment, Buffy's actually handing it to her. Buffy's giving
Mhm.
Faith everything she's ever wanted. And you can tell in that moment, Faith doesn't want
Mhm.
it. Like, it's so cool.
Well, it's also just beautiful seeing Faith wanting to protect Buffy, feeling sad for
Yes.
Buffy. Like you can tell this is
Mhm.
more than she feels like the weight of this burden. Like
Yeah.
it's the reaction of a friend.
Yeah,
Like
there's
she
sadness,
sees
there's
her.
mourning,
Yes,
yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yep.
And like and then the fact that Faith is the last one in there with Buffy, being like, Buffy, we gotta go. Obviously,
Yes.
I'm skipping
Uh-huh.
ahead. We'll go
Right.
back. But I just, while we're talking about Faith, I think
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
beautiful that Faith was the last one to wait for Buffy. And I don't
Mhm.
fault anyone for leaving. Like, I at all. I just, I think that there's something beautiful about Faith not being willing to leave until Buffy did. Like,
Yeah.
Faith
Mhm.
really saw this as they were
I
getting out
noticed that
together.
too.
And that's
Mhm.
really beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. So then we see Xander swinging his sword and Dawn yanking a rope and bringing a bunch of sunlight in. And then we see Wood getting stabbed by a bringer. Then we see the bringers descend on Andrew and Anya, driving them apart. Andrew's like, I've got swimmer's ear, and falls to the side. And then Anya slashes one of the bringers that jump on Andrew. This is what the script says. I think it was kind of cut out in the episode. And as she does so, another one comes from the side and she turns and is gutted, is what the script says. The bringer stabbing her repeatedly as she drops dead. Thankfully, we just got one slash because I don't think I could have handled that. It would have been too much.
Yeah, gutting would have been too much for sure.
Yeah, that
I
would have been
think
too
she
much.
died the perfect way. I think it was perfect
And that is
for
so
her.
unpopular. That is so
Really?
unpopular.
It's very shocking.
People are very upset that Anya died.
Here's what I'll say. I think she died the correct way. I wish we got a little bit more of an acknowledgement that she was dead. You know what I mean? Like, I wish there was a little bit something after her death, but her actual death, I feel like was good for her. That's exactly how Anya would have wanted it to be. She would have wanted it to be quick. And I just wish that there was more afterwards, like even just a scene of everyone being like, I'm happy we all made it. I wish Anya were here. You know what I mean? Like it could have just been a line. Just something to acknowledge that they noticed she wasn't there.
Yeah, a lot of people either like are just angry that she got killed at all, or are angry that there was no any sort of recognition at the very end. Originally from IMDb, Xander was to be killed protecting Dawn. I don't know how true that is. But then obviously Emma Caulfield said that she did not want to be involved in future Buffy projects. The Whedons explains Anya's death, saying, I wanted to kill somebody and I wanted to do it brutally and suddenly and never really pay it off. I wanted a death that was a really middle of the battle death, the opposite of the Spike death, which was perfect and noble. And Emma had made it clear that she really was not interested in coming back. I think things with Fox weren't great and she felt ill-used, not by the show. She had a good time making the show, I think. But she was ready to move on, but it was tough killing her off. The last shot before we wrapped her was that shot where she gets sliced. And it's very weird to play her death and go, okay, I'm done. Emma Caulfield has the following to say about her character's death. She says, I don't think I'd change the way Anya died. It was so harsh and out of the blue. When I read it, I was like, what? It just seemed like there was no buildup. You didn't see it coming. I liked that. And I liked that she died doing good. She kind of really had come into her own, which I think made it more sad. I knew I was going to die, but I didn't know it was going to be like that. So she said that back in 2004, but there's an updated quote from her in Evan Ross Katz's book where he asks her about it. And she says this. She says, I did ask to die. I could be wrong about this, but from what I do remember, the show was on the bubbles to whether the whole creative team wanted to do another season. I think if it was this collective, yes, let's do one more, that would have happened, but everything was sort of up in the air at that point, and I knew that I didn't want to do another season regardless. I just felt like I had tapped into everything I was going to tap into, and I was ready to spread my wings elsewhere, and Joss took note of that. So when it was decided that the show would end, Joss came to me and told me that I was going to die, and I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. And then I read the script, and I remember thinking, there's no real mourning for her, and that felt personal. And I know it was. And my response to it over the many years now has just been like, well, you know, it happened, or death, it's sudden. They avoided the apocalypse, and I'm sure they cried about me later. But at least for what was shot, they didn't. And that is definitely a creative choice for sure. I can't look at that any other way other than go fuck yourself. That's how I took it. That's how it will always remain, because there really was no story reason for there to be a lack of emotion about it. And then she goes on to kind of talk about her experience.
I
with
agree
mixed feelings
in
about
the sense that it lacked emotion. And that's why I feel like there should have been more of an acknowledgement after she died, especially from like Xander.
I think, honestly, it came down to time. If it had been a 2-hour thing, I really do think there would have been more. Because I don't mind her dying so abruptly, because that added, like, that moment that, like, you start seeing people die, the potentials, would get stabbed,
the stakes kind of
her
go
die,
up. Yeah.
Buffy getting stabbed. At that point, you're like, holy crap, this might not work. We have 10 minutes left in the episode.
I also kind of feel like sometimes people in media where there's like a war or apocalypse happening, people get so pissed off if like a main character dies. I'm like, that's just the reality of war, senseless death.
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like people still talk about Finnick dying in Hunger Games. Sorry, spoilers. And people get really pissed off. I'm like, okay, but like, yeah, it sucks that he dies, but casualties in war happen. And it's not unnecessary to write it in. It's an unnecessary death for sure, like all death is. But I don't mind her dying like that. I think it's shocking because you don't expect somebody to die like that in the show Buffy. It's just so like jarring. I've never seen somebody die like that on television in general. Like that specific type of like swipe is insane to watch, especially like a beloved character of several seasons. It's shocking.
Yeah.
But I don't mind it. And I honestly, like, I don't hate the reaction or lack thereof because I view it as everyone going in assuming most people are not going to make it out, including themselves.
Yes, that's
which
how
has
I
been
view it too.
stated, which has been stated by like or just an understanding of everyone going into this battle knowing like, okay, like I could die. Even Anya says that.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, Andrew, you're probably not going to make it out. And Andrew's like, why did I survive? So I think the lack of reaction, or I don't even think there's a lack of reaction from Xander. I think it's more so like Xander being like, okay, she didn't make it out. This was a possibility.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to mourn this later. But for now, like, she did good. And, like, thank you for telling me, sort of thing. I view it as that. But I also don't fault people being upset that there wasn't a
Totally.
emotional reaction by anyone.
Totally.
If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I view it the
But I'm
same
not going
way.
to discredit Emma's reaction and feelings towards that because I would probably feel the same if I was a character and poured so much into a very loved character in a very popular TV show for like what 4 seasons, and then to be killed off that abruptly and sharply and shockingly, and then to have like only my ex-fiance kind of talk about me and then no one else, I would also kind of be like, is this personal? So I absolutely see that side of it as well.
She also knew
I just,
there were other things going on behind the scenes that I'm sure
Sure.
add to all of that. Yeah.
totally, that we just don't know about.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same. I feel like it's extremely realistic, and I also feel like
Yeah.
due to time constraints, there probably would have been more. But yeah. I've always viewed like Xander's thing at the very end, like the script even says he gets choked up when he says, "That's my girl."
Yeah, and I
Everybody
got that
thought that they
too.
were going to die. Like they
Yeah.
really did. All right. Yeah. So then this is the moment where things start going really bad. Faith gets attacked by a bunch of vamps. She yells Rona, tosses the scythe to her. Rona grabs it. The passing of the torch, sharing of the power. I had quoted Field a few episodes ago about the scythe being the symbol of decisive resolve, of determined differentiation on the path of individual or collective revolution. It's time to break the cycle, change the system, and evolve as species. And we've talked all season long about the weapon and how important it is, and that's because of this moment here with the scythe being passed. It's very much a totem. So Buffy is still on the ground watching potentials die everywhere. We see Chow Ann die. We see Amanda die. That one really gets me a lot. Poor Amanda. And Buffy's just looking so discouraged. And then the first appears taunting her, says, "Ow, mommy, this mortal wound is all itchy. You pulled a nice trick. Hey, you came pretty close to smacking me down. What more do you want?" Buffy pulls herself up on her hands, fury in her eyes. She says, "I want you to get out of my face." Oh, this is the most Buffy thing ever. Love this pun. Stop defining me. I define myself. I reject becoming the monster. I'm not going to let you define me. I'm going to be my own person. And then also just get out of my face. And this, I think this might be my favorite sequence in the entire show. Like this moment where she gets up and she's just like looking fiercely into the camera in slow motion, and the music just swells. It's a variation of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer theme song that's being played. So you have the strings act as the electric guitar, and then once it goes full into it, it's playing the Buffy theme, like the 4-note motif, over and over again, and it just gives me goosebumps every time. She gets up. The script says, Buffy rises, sweaty, bloodied, hair in her face, but nothing but resolve in her eyes. The first is nowhere in sight as she takes a step forward. 2, stumbling. Rona sees her and throws her the scythe. Buffy catches it, stands a little straighter, and screams and swings the back of the axe like it's a bat, knocking 5 vamps back and over the edge in one blow. And this empowers Faith, who knocks back the pile of vamps all over her, and then the girls turn the tide, forcing the vamps back, many of them falling over the edge, and at least one Slayer going with them is what the script says. And then Spike stumbles under the seal, and all of a sudden energy shoots up from him, blue light shoots up straight out past Willow, still laying on the floor, And the energy is blue, but what comes back is golden light, golden sunlight on him, reflecting off of him. And he says, Buffy, she yells to him and has to dive out of the way as a prismed ray of pure soulful sunlight blasts out of the amulet and into the cavern. It wipes out the vamps instantly and even starts tearing apart the cavern. Faith yells for everybody to get out. Everyone runs past as Buffy comes up to Spike, and he says, I can feel it, Buffy. And she says, what? He says, my soul. It's really there. Kind of stings. And again, this is the symbolism of leaving shame, right? Like we talked about this in Never Leave Me, how Spike was like, oh, I understand what it means now to have a soul, Buffy. It means you just hate yourself. And Buffy's like, that's not at all what it is. And so now he can finally understand what it means to have a soul, what it means more than just hating yourself and being able to look in at the potential of who you are. We've talked about the symbolism of light, how beneath you, he's in just like this blue light and he's clinging to the cross and talking about resting and how it's often used in even the gift, lots of blue light until Buffy sees her gift and there's that golden light that comes all over her again. And so then debris is falling everywhere. The Slayers are running towards the entrance. We see a couple bringers like fall away from Andrew. And Andrew's just like, why? Questioning everything as girls grab him and haul him out. Giles is helping Wood. And Wood's like, get everybody onto the bus. Giles is hurting everybody that way. Kennedy's helping Willow. Dawn's pulling Xander, who's calling for Anya. This is so
that part
sad.
had me so upset. And the fact that you can see her body, but he can't see her.
And
like,
she's behind a bringer.
What did she do to y'all? Holy.
Yeah. He's yelling for Anya and we just see her. Oh man, that is just
that shot is cruel.
That's so heartbreaking. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The script says we sees he cannot, her corpse hidden by debris and fallen bringers. Back in the cavern, Buffy is being told to leave by Spike. She says, you've done enough. You can still. And he says, no, you beat him back. It's time for me to do the cleanup. Faith calls for Buffy, but then the falling debris makes her take off. And Spike says, gotta move. I think it's fair to say school's out for bloody summer. Love the double meaning of Buffy's last name being Summers. The Hellmouth is closed because of Buffy. Spike says, I mean it. I gotta do this. The script says his hand is held up frozen in his rictus of revelatory pain. Buffy takes her own hand, interlocks it with his a moment, and both hands burst into flames. I like this moment because it's a callback to I touch the fire and it freezes me. And both of them talking about how they
she
just
got the fire back.
Yeah. And both of them talking about how they just want to feel this doesn't mean anything, but now for the first time they can
It's
actually
a different
see
connection.
each other. Totally. Yep. A moment of connection, recognition that he touched her, that they connected. She says, I love you. The script says a moment, he smiles kindly and he says, no, you don't, but thanks for saying it.
And I think we've already touched on this a little bit. And I know this moment is so controversial, I think, for a lot of people.
There's a lot to read into it.
I have always interpreted this
yeah.
scene is when Buffy says she loves him, I think it means so much more than romantic. I think it means I see who you are. I see who you've become. I am proud of you. Like, I think that's more what it is I see the sacrifice you are making unselfishly for no one. Like, you are doing this for others. You get nothing out of this. And I think this is the first truly unselfish thing that Spike has really done. I mean, getting his soul
I agree.
Was
There's
a
nothing
selfish
in
choice
this for him. Absolutely nothing.
And I think that is what makes it so beautiful, is that this really is a selfless decision and it's just beautiful. And I think that, and if people want to interpret it as her saying I love you in like a romantic way, that's totally fine too. I'm fine with that. The way that I personally interpret it is she cares about him and she does love him, maybe not in a romantic way. She may not be in love with him, but she has come to really care for who he is. And I think why he says, no, you don't, is because he is taking it as romantic. And he's saying, I don't think you do love me romantically.
This is huge that he recognizes that.
Yes. But I think it's this acknowledgement that they're both seeing each other and recognizing that this decision has nothing to do with their care for each other, their love. And it has everything to do with, at the end of the day, Spike is a hero now. He is a warrior now. And he's making this and a champion. He's making this decision the same way Buffy would, the same way Angel would, the same way so many of these characters that have grown and changed have. And I think that's why this moment is beautiful, because this is the first time Spike is doing something not because he's love's bitch, but because he himself wants to make a difference. He himself wants to be a champion, a warrior, and save people. And I think that is the most beautiful thing that could have been done for his character.
Oh, I agree.
And that's why I think Buffy saying I love you is not romantic, because I actually think it means more.
Thank you.
Yes, I think it's a thank you. I think it's an I see
She's
you.
trying to
I'm
give
proud
him
of
the thing
you.
that she thinks he wants most in this moment, knowing he's going to die. So she says, I love you.
Yes.
And I do think there is a genuine affection behind her eyes. Like, I see that for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it means so much more than just the romantic I love
I
you
agree.
for sure.
I love this scene. I think it's beautiful. I think that if he had died here and he hadn't gone on to Angel, it would have been a perfect ending for him. But I think him going on to Angel is beautiful.
His story is not
well.
over. Yeah.
And he really, like, if there's anything I can encourage people to do after finishing this, is go watch Angel season 5, honestly, because it's so good and it does so much for a lot of characters. I love it. I think it's so beautiful that a vampire is the one to, like, quote unquote save Sunnydale. Obviously it's mainly the Slayers, like, but I think it's what a full picture that it's like we started this series on the Hellmouth with the Master, and it's like we're ending the series back at the Hellmouth, back at the high school with another vampire, but he's finishing it. Like, it's very cool. It's very full circle.
Well, and he was sired by Drusilla, who was sired by Angel, who was sired by Darla, who was sired by the Master. So this is the Master's fault.
It all ties back. It all ties back.
Yep.
I think I also, to add on to that, Leah, because that's very well said. That's exactly how I interpret it as well. I also think it's key that he's the one who says, no, you don't, because for seasons, he was always projecting and telling Buffy, you're lying to yourself. You do love me. You do, like, all these sorts of things. And there's always a pushback from Buffy being like, no, I don't. I don't love you, like all that sort of stuff. And so I think now that Spike has a soul and is selflessly thinking and also understands Buffy in a real sense, because he's not viewing it, her and their dynamic, through what he wants it to be. When she says, like, I love you, he's sitting here being like, I can actually see her and her emotional complexity in this moment and know that it's not fully romantic love.
And that's why it's a callback to Never Leave Me, where he was talking about how, oh, I finally get you because you just hate yourself. That's what meaning having a soul is. And she's like, you know nothing about me. Now he gets her. And I just love that.
And again, I think this is a very beautiful moment. This is a beautiful moment of connection. And this makes the last couple episodes with them even sweeter, knowing that this is kind of the ending that they have together as a unit. And it's like this connection that I think that they've been getting to in season 7, that this understanding between each other, that not to compare in this moment between them, but that Buffy and Angel just kind of have had this understanding of each other. And now that he's had a soul and is able to kind of speed run his redemption because Buffy has been at his side in season 7 is A plus and is beautiful, whereas Angel didn't get that. He had to do the work for 100 years before any of this ever happened. So I think it's very fortunate, and Spike is very lucky in that sense to have Buffy kind of help him get to this place after just 1 year of having a soul, and then being able to go on to Angel the series and be able to kind of really go through a lot of his not necessarily redemption, because he does a lot of that in season 7, but just kind of go through the work of being like, okay, like, let's address a lot of the stuff that you've done, rather than just being like, okay, well, I have a soul now, you know what I mean? But I love this scene, and a lot of people compare it to they compare this to the I love you, I know
from
Star
Han
Wars.
Solo, and
Yeah. And people say like this is like very similar and on the same lengths as that.
Yeah.
But
Believe it or not, so in the commentary, Joss said that Sarah Michelle Gellar didn't feel she was getting the emotion that Whedon wanted for the confession that Buffy loves Spike. He directed her to love him in that moment and ignore the world falling apart. For that time, it doesn't exist. After several takes, she finally requested that they move on. It was a rare instance where Gellar didn't feel she connected with what was supposed to be conveyed, but from Whedon's point of view, it was exactly what he wanted. Kind of
she knew.
interesting. I feel like she did a great job. I know. She's like, I don't feel like I don't buy this.
I'm just messing. I'm just messing.
I feel like she did a great job. I feel like she
No, she
conveyed
did.
so much. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard when you get to the end, I'm sure, second guessing and wanting to nail all of this stuff. But
well, it's a big moment too,
yeah,
especially for
it's
people who
huge.
like are shipping them together for seasons. You're like, oh my word, I have to like really nail this.
Right. So Buffy takes off. Spike says, I want to see how it ends. Wood shuts the door of the bus and peels out. At the very back of the bus, there's Dawn looking for, and we see the script says Buffy. And this is where I full on started crying. I'd been holding back tears. And I think this moment hit me harder because of Michelle Trachtenberg's death. Just watching Dawn looking for her sister and just like desperately looking back, like no one else is but Dawn. And just, I don't know. There was something that touched me in that moment. And then, like, thinking about the continuation, I'm going to cry. The continuation coming up and how, like, we're not going to get to see that dynamic on screen ever again. And it's just like there was something really sad in that moment to watch her just go after Buffy and hug her. I think that was kind of the moment that I needed between the two of them, where Dawn was like, ride or die, I'm there for you. And everybody else is looking forward, but Dawn's looking back.
Yeah, it's always going to be them too.
And that like desperation on her face and how like that moment she sees Buffy, and it just, I don't know, something made me really sad inside when I was thinking about how that's just going to be like, it's just going to be really hard. So Buffy tries to head for the door, but it's blocked. She has nowhere to go but up the stairs. Spike is smiling as he's eaten from inside by the power, and the world falls away from beneath him as he dies. I love how we have a mirroring of what happened with Jonathan and Andrew, and now with Spike. Andrew drew Jonathan's blood, opening up the seal, then his tears closed it. Spike's blood opened it. His soul, the purity of what he was doing, seeing himself holy for the first time, is what closes it. An act of contrition, I think, is what we Mark Field called Andrew's tears. And there's that parallel with the cross and the blue light and all that stuff, but also like there's a similarity between what Andrew did, that contrition, that for the first time you recognize what you've done and stuff. And I really love that. So the bus rolls on, and Faith is by Wood. Giles is wrapping a tourniquet. Rona is just fading. Via's slapping her, saying, stay awake. Look at me. This is nothing. Andrew is in complete shock. I love the different viewpoints that we're getting right now. He's saying,
very realistic.
Why didn't I die?
Survivor's guilt.
Xander tends a girl lost in his own thoughts. Kennedy holds onto the still exhausted Willow, and Dawn still looks out the back window for any sign of her sister. And then it says, and then she sees her sister running along the rooftop, jumping off one just as it collapses, keeping pace with the bus. The bus pulls out ahead of the last building, and Buffy jumps an impossible distance right in front of the collapsing Sun Cinema sign, lands hard on top of the bus. And then she holds on, and then finally the bus stops just as we see like the entirety of Sunnydale just caving in like a massive crater. They all get out. Dawn just like holds Buffy for a minute. It's so cute. And then Giles is like, I don't understand who did this. And a lot of people hate that Buffy's last word is Spike, but I also kind of get it because it's also Buffy being like, hey, you didn't trust my instincts all season long. And look,
True.
I was right.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's responding to Giles like, Spike, like, hey, I had faith in someone and I saw their potential and I gave them the opportunity to prove themselves and have free will and choice. And this is what they chose. And that paid off, you know? So we see that the crater is just smoking. Sunnydale is just gone. The sign just like creaks right in, and there it goes, destroyed by Spike for the third time. And the script says Xander knows there's no hope, but presses. And he says, did you see, to Andrew? And Andrew says, I was scared. I'm sorry. And Xander says, did you see what happened? Andrew looks at Xander a moment, rises up a bit, and says, she was incredible. She died saving my life. And then Xander says,
the way that Andrew gives her flowers.
Yeah. Xander, welling up, says, "That's my girl, always doing the stupid thing," and Andrew nods sadly.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And then in the bus, I could have done without this moment. We could have had like an extra moment with the Scoobies.
Why couldn't we have a moment with Giles and Buffy?
Right,
A moment with Willow and Buffy. Like,
Yeah, God forbid the core
for
four.
real.
Yeah. We think Wood's going to die. Wood doesn't die. He says, "Surprise." I even wrote this in my notes. We did not need this moment to last as long as it did. There's a quote from Joss, or actually from, I think, DB Woodside, where he says that on the day of, Joss came up to him and was like, "I went back and forth. One day I was going to kill you. The next day I wasn't going to kill you."
He's obsessed with saying that to his crew members, I've
and
learned.
he basically said, "Congratulations, today I decided not to kill you." Like, it was basically, I flipped a coin. Like, such a power trip. Leah's like, worst decision he ever made.
No, here's the thing. I may hate Joss, but I don't like the way he treats people. You can kill off characters, but you shouldn't be
flippant.
But also, you shouldn't be so rude to the actors.
Yeah.
Like, give them a courtesy and like acknowledge the fact that like this is their job
and their character too. Yes. Like, these are
right. Well, because in some of these cases, that means they're off the show for good. Like, obviously, this is the end of the show, but like, imagine if he had killed Wood. They must have known that there wasn't going to be a spinoff at this point. But imagine if they had, that closes any door for Wood to come back in future spinoffs, you know?
I think he just loves having that power.
Oh, it's
very evident.
Yeah.
Just so mean.
So now the core group is milling near the crater, including Faith. Faith says, "Looks like the Hellmouth is officially closed for business." And from here on out, it's one long continuous shot. It doesn't break. We just slowly pan in on Buffy. And then Giles is like, "There's another one in Cleveland," not to spoil the moment. Xander says, "We saved the world." Willow says, "We changed the world. I can feel them, Buffy, all over. There are Slayers awakening everywhere." Dawn says, "We'll have to find them." Willow says, "We will." Giles says, "Yes, because the mall was actually in Sunnydale, so no hope of going there tomorrow." Dawn says, "We destroyed the mall. I fought on the wrong side." Xander says, "All those stores gone. Who will remember these landmarks unless we tell the world of them? We're still pushing in." Giles says, "We have a lot of work ahead of us." And I love this entire moment because while they're all talking, Faith said her lines, but then she intentionally is kind of like stepping back while we get to like hear from each of the Scoobies. And then she steps back like into her position, into frame, as she says, "Can I push him in?" She says, and then Willow says, "You got my vote." And Faith says, "I just want to sleep, yo, for like a week." Dawn says,
Faith
"I guess
is so real. It's like, can we just relax?
Why do we have to plan for the next thing? Can we just live in the moment?" Dawn says, "I guess we all could if we wanted to." Willow says, "Yeah, the first is scrunch. So what do you think we should do, Buffy?" And then Faith says, "Yeah, you're not the one and only chosen anymore. Just got to live life like a person. How does that feel?"
I love that she's the one who said that too.
Yes, me too. And then Dawn says, "Buffy, what are we going to do now?"
Everything. You're going to do everything and nothing, whatever you want.
But it's so important that Faith is the one and then Dawn is the one, because it's her Slayer side and it's her human side. How does it feel to live like a person? And then Dawn's like, what are we going to do now as her humanity? The script says Buffy looks at them, looks back at the crater, and we are in full close-up as she considers the question, a small smile creeping onto her lips as she decides on her answer. And then we close out. And I love the way this shot is structured, slowly closing in until Giles and Xander are covered up by Dawn and Willow's heads, and it's just the women. And then we close in even more until we hear Dawn say, "Yeah, Buffy, what are we going to do now?" And the last frame is obviously a close-up of Buffy, but we have Faith out of focus in the background. And it's a reminder that Buffy's not alone anymore, but she's still the focus because it was always about her. And I touched on this briefly in Storyteller, but the idea that not only does she completely abolish the status quo and free herself and all other Slayers from the constraints of the patriarchal system, but Buffy, the character, has also freed herself by upending the narrative structure built into and constraining her entire show and limiting her development. We don't get to see Buffy's response because it's up to her to decide what it will be. The camera shuts off. There are no more lines written. The script is done. Buffy, both within the Buffyverse universe and out of it as the character we love, is now free. And even more than that, on a much less meta path, Joss wrote Buffy to be a reflection of us, the audience, and so the unanswered question is a call for us to go forth and empower ourselves, to answer it in the way that we're going to live out our lives, to create meaning and purpose. And I find that really beautiful and really empowering because Buffy is all of us, right? So Joss says, I designed Buffy to be an icon, to be an emotional experience, to be loved in a way that other shows can't be loved. I wanted her to be a cultural phenomenon. I wanted people to internalize it and make up fantasies where they were in the story, to take it home with them, for it to exist beyond the TV show. And I think he succeeded in that, because at the end of the day, there really is no other character like Buffy Summers. And that smile is everything to me.
Agreed. I don't even know what to say. What do you say at the end of this series and the episode? I'm going to withhold a lot of my feelings about the podcast and what it's meant to me and all that sort of stuff when we have our little separate episode for that. I just think it's such a beautiful ending to the show. I love that we don't know Buffy's answer, because she deserves that. She deserves that privacy and that choice on her own. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy that we're done.
The ending of this show really gives me a similar feeling as how I feel at the end of the Hunger Games series, where Katniss is sitting there and it's peace and it's tranquil. And there's this whole idea. I think even in the books, you don't even know Katniss's kids' names. It's just boy and girl. And there's this whole idea of the Capitol, or AKA the readers as well, don't get to look into Katniss's life anymore. She gave as much as she possibly could to the revolution, to the Capitol, all of that. That now that she's free, she gets to live in peace and happiness. And that is the same. First of all, amazing ending. But second of all, that is the feeling I get for Buffy, where it's so much of her life has been apocalypse after apocalypse, having to plan things out and tell everyone what's happening because she's the Slayer and all that. And I think it's so beautiful that there's no plan anymore. There's things that she could do. And we know, because of an Angel, we know that there's a path that she chooses to take. But it's so beautiful that it could have been anything, and it still could be anything.
It's still very vague in Angel.
Buffy.
We don't fully know what she's doing.
But it's up to Buffy. She can choose it. Or she can choose to retire, which is the first time in her life she has ever even thought that retiring was an option. It was always, I'm going to fight until I die. And so it's just it's so beautiful that we as the audience don't get to look into her life anymore. And I'm really curious to see how that kind of idea is going to play into the reboot.
Yeah.
I think that they would do best to not ruin our idea of Buffy, but then also not to heavily rely on her in the reboot by having her just pop in to kind of mentor and help when needed, and then we not know much about her personal life. I really do think that would be the best case scenario for Buffy's character. But also, they could prove me wrong. But that's just, I think that she deserves that sort of privacy of her personal life, even in the reboot.
We chose, I don't know if you guys remember this, but back when we were deciding on our podcast name and back when we were deciding on what our logo was going to be and everything, we intentionally chose, well, first of all, we chose Becoming Buffy because of this moment. This entire story is about Buffy becoming, and obviously we have the Becoming episodes that factor into this as well. And this moment is really, now Buffy is free to fully become herself. But we also did something that I feel like not a lot of other podcasts do with their logos, where we chose to have the logo of Buffy being in the sunlight. I think every other logo, if they choose to have something, is her in a graveyard. And we intentionally chose that because at the end of the day, this is what Buffy yearns for, and this is where she ends up, is in the sunlight. And so, I don't know, just kind of a full circle moment. I know we're ending and everything too, but just kind of a little hey, this was the intention, and I stand by it because it is totally worth it when we get to this moment, to her smile. And to this day, no other series finale makes me feel this way. I get to the end and I shed tears and I immediately feel like I lost a friend and want to go back to the beginning and start watching it again. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for listening. Let us know your thoughts on the series finale. Let us know. I have so many things. There's so many things that we said, so many things that happened. Spike's death, Anya's death, Wood not dying. Let's see, Angel's return, the amulet, the scythe, the Turrican, Kennedy, whatever it is, let us know your thoughts. As always, you guys can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Tumblr at Becoming Buffy Podcast. You can email us at becomingbuffypodcast@gmail.com. If you guys can support us and listen to our past spoilers and our bonus episodes and stuff like that. Next week, we're going to kind of give you guys information what we're going to be doing with that in the future and stuff. But until then, you guys can join our Buy Me a Coffee membership if you want to, buymecoffee.com/becomingbuffy. Special shout out and thank you to our producers, Christine, Paul, Kashaan, Kate, Tara, and Denise. Thank you to all the rest of our listeners and subscribers. Thank you literally to everyone, and we will see you guys next time.